number 10, the Justice League. Nah, just kidding. At number 10, what if Spidey kept the symbiote suit? Big shout out to Smasher6763 for suggesting this skeletal Peter Parker from Earth 9811. Imagine a reality where the heroes and villains are trapped on Battleworld after the events of Secret Wars and never return to Earth. Instead, they settled down, got hitched, and had families. Amidst all this, Spider-Man still sports the black symbiote costume, never having it removed by Reed Richards. Over time, the symbiote consumed Peter's body, leaving nothing but a skeleton underneath. It's this horrifying revelation that Peter's been deceased for ages and Venom's been pulling the strings. Yet Peter's mind retains a glimmer of consciousness, as his consciousness was absorbed by Venom, making the whole ordeal even eerier. If you're enjoying this video so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. At number 9 is the Revengers. Thank you, Jack of Clubs 6229 for suggesting this one. In the eerie annals of alternate realities, one of the most chilling versions of the Avengers emerges from the Cancerverse, a nightmarish realm where life has conquered Earth. This gruesome transformation was orchestrated by none other than Sentry, the once celebrated Lord Marvel. In a desperate bid to stave off his terminal cancer, Marvel struck a bargain with the enigmatic Many-Angled Ones. These eldritch entities resided in the intersections of the multiverse and offered him immense power in exchange for annihilating the Grim Reaper itself. Marvel accepted, thus transmuting his universe and consequently his closest allies into grotesque parodies of their parallel selves. The Revengers, as they came to be known, were grotesque and terrifying. Carol Danvers sports a nightmarish visage, to say the very least, while the Hulk is sporting menacing horns, and Thor's beard has been replaced with withering tentacles. Their purpose? To corrupt Earth 616 and spread the influence of the insidious Many-Angled Ones across the multiverse. In a macabre battle that ultimately met its end when Thanos restored the Grim Reaper to the Cancerverse, extinguishing the Revengers' unholy reign. At number 8, Dark Beast, who we've covered before, but many of you in the comments seem to love him, so I thought I'd bring him up again. While regular Beast is known for his intellect and roles in various superhero teams, his dark counterpart takes on a chilling turn in the Age of Apocalypse timeline. In this dystopian world where Xavier's demise leads to Magneto's leadership in Apocalypse's early onslaught, Beast's transformation into a villain is a stark departure from his original self. See, without Xavier's moral compass to guide him, he indulges in unhindered experimentation and loses his compassion entirely. Dark Beast becomes one of Apocalypse's chief scientists, mercilessly torturing and experimenting on both humans and mutants, including Cyclops and Jean Grey. Escaping to Earth 616, he assumes the identity of his counterpart, the 616, Hank McCoy, committing heinous acts, including the unaliving of the childhood friends of his doppelganger. Dark Beast's sinister journey culminates with his alliance with Onslaught, leaving a haunting trail of darkness across alternate dimensions. At number 7 is the zombified Quicksilver. Shout out to Totally Not GRF for pointing out that the Marvel Zombies universe is terrifying once you realize that the entirety of Earth got affected with the virus in a single day because of a zombified Quicksilver. That's right, sent back to Earth to confront the zombie menace, Pietro encounters what seems to be Scarlet Witch, only to discover that it's the devious zombie Mystique in disguise. In a harrowing turn of events, Pietro is bitten on the neck, succumbing to infection. But here's the real nightmare. With his incredible speed, zombified Quicksilver becomes a global vector, spreading the contagion far and wide, making containment impossible. It seems even our mightiest heroes can become harbingers of doom in alternate realities.
Number 6, Bizarro Wonder Woman. We all know of the original Bizarro, and by original I mean Superman's Bizarro. But not a lot of people know there's actually a Bizarro Wonder Woman. Bizarro Wonder Woman first showed up in DC Comics Presents issue 71. Now, since then, there have actually been multiple versions of Bizarro Wonder Woman. There's even one called Bizarra. I mean, what can I say? DC loves its Bizarro versions of their own characters. And for the most part, fans do as well. I just think, it depends on how good the story is around them. That definitely affects it. Number 5, Superwoman. So, Superwoman is an evil alternate version of Wonder Woman. She is from Earth 3 and is part of a group known as the Crime Syndicate, which is an evil version of the Justice League. This version of Wonder Woman fled Themyscira, or known on that Earth as Damnation Island. But she didn't just leave there all happy and, whatever. No, she left there, but not before murdering all of her fellow Amazonian warriors. Like, this version of Wonder Woman was really hardcore. She's scary, she's manipulative, and does whatever it takes to get what she wants. I mean, even turning her fellow allies against one another, two of which she was actually dating secretly. Number 4, Nazi Wonder Woman. I feel like at this point, every hero has some sort of Nazi doppelganger. At least in DC. I mean, they even did it in the Arrowverse during the Crisis on Earth X crossover. Oliver and Kara had to deal with evil Nazi doppelgangers from Earth X. Barry actually didn't have one. It was just Eobard Thawne, who was also just messing with him. But, back to my main point. Wonder Woman also has an evil Nazi doppelganger. This version comes from Earth 10 and is an Earth where Germany won World War II, just like Earth X in the Arrowverse. All of the Justice League members have evil versions of themselves, and one of those, of course, is Wonder Woman. It was really a different kind of thing for fans to see. And in this version, there's almost no one that can stop them. Imagine going up against an evil version of the League. It's just a terrifying thought. Number 3, Flashpoint Wonder Woman. When Barry Allen went back in time to save his mom, he created an alternate timeline. It was during the comic event Flashpoint. In this new timeline, Wonder Woman and Aquaman, meet up to fight a common enemy. But they also happen to fall in love. It always happens. The only problem is, Aquaman is taken with Mira. But that doesn't sit well with old Diana. She's like, no, let me take care of this problem. So, she kills Mira. But it doesn't sit well with Arthur. And then after that, Themyscira and Atlantis, they decide to go to war. This war basically ravages the entire world. Wonder Woman just kills a ton of people and gets to the point where you wouldn't even really recognize her anymore. It's a great story though. I mean, Flashpoint has become one of the most beloved DC stories around. Fans love that alternate timeline it created. It's been adapted into an animated movie, and it was even brought into The Flash Season 3. It's super popular. Number 2, Blackest Night Wonder Woman. Blackest Night was not only a big deal for Green Lantern fans, but just DC fans in general. It was one of the most epic events in DC's history. The long-forgotten Black Lanterns returned, and in order to become Black Lantern, you have to be dead, which Wonder Woman was. As a Black Lantern, Wonder Woman is basically unstoppable. I mean, they are so powerful. At one point, Mara stabs Diana through the chest with a trident. A freaking trident. And that doesn't stop her. She does eventually come back to the land of the living, but fans really like seeing this kind of different, quite frankly, super scary version of Wonder Woman, if only for a little while. Number 1, Injustice Wonder Woman. I feel like a lot of people probably saw this one coming. I mean, the Injustice universe just keeps getting more and more popular. It was created in 2013 with NetherRealm Studios' fighting game Injustice: Gods Among Us, which is an awesome game. It's set in a world where Superman is basically tricked by the Joker into killing Lois and their unborn child. This, of course, makes him go crazy, as it would with anyone. That would just mess anyone up. And he ends up starting an evil regime. Some heroes in the DC world end up joining him, and some obviously stand against him. Wonder Woman is actually on his side in this version. This version of Wonder Woman is brutal. She just straight up kills anyone in her path. We're not given a lot of her backstory, but they are always expanding this world. There have been multiple ongoing comics set in this world, and of course we ended up getting Injustice 2. Fingers crossed we end up getting Injustice 3 sometime within the next couple of years, but there are rumors going around that NetherRealm is working on something outside of Mortal Kombat and Injustice. So at this point, it seems like it's going to be a very long wait until we see Injustice 3, which really sucks. Fans love that franchise, and we need a third installment. We need to end that trilogy.
Number 10, Age of X. There isn't really an exact X-Men team in this reality, but there are the Force Warriors, so I guess we could consider them as an X-Men alternate? In Age of X, we learn of Earth 11326. Here, there was no Professor Xavier to bring mutants together, uniting them. As a result, anti-mutant sentiments grew, and following the Phoenix disaster, mutants were on the brink of extinction in the US, thanks to national and honestly global persecution. However, some were able to rise up and join the Mutant Liberation Front, fighting to protect their kind. Eventually, the mutants were unified by Magneto, who brought them together at a place he built called Fortress X. During the siege of the fortress, each night barriers protecting the place would be rebuilt by the Force Warriors, a team of psionic mutant powerhouses including Legion, Hellion, Betsy Braddock's Psylocke, Carmela Unnasion's Standoff, and finally, Rachel Summers' Revenant. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, and if you love when we talk about alternate versions of alternate characters, well, guess what? We got a whole playlist filled with that, so you can go check that out and learn even more. Number 9, Witch Breed. The Witch Breed hails from Earth 311. They are mutants of that reality. Witch Breed is a term given to anyone who basically kind of has powers in that reality, but while some of these characters are villains, not all of them are bad. In fact, the Witch Breed team is made up of mutants who attempt to help others, who are good, and yet who are mistreated just because of who they are, like them. The Earth 311 reality is known as 1602, named after the year it's set in. The team here is led by Carlos Javier, and members include the Angel, Hal McCoy, Petro, Sister Wanda, Scariest Summerisle, Roberto Trefusis, and Jean Grey, who is disguised as a boy and going by John Grey. Number 8, Hellions. Okay, so this one isn't technically an alternate version of the X-Men, but they are from the main continuity. But even discounting that, because I have talked about main reality alternate versions of the X-Men in the past and included them on my list, counting them according to my own self-defined parameters for the list, this team also isn't technically a version of the X-Men specifically. They're just a different mutant group in the main continuity. But I love them so much, and they are a mutant team, and they certainly can be scary if you get on their bad side. Hellions is a team that was made up of those mutants that Krakoa didn't quite know what to do with, considering them too troublesome to deal with. As such, Mr. Sinister suggested that they ban these problematic, less stable mutants together, petitioning to have them as his own team that he could then, rehabilitate. Use under the leadership of Quanon, who goes by Psylocke, herself considered a somewhat problematic mutant due to her past and her weird connection for many years with Betsy Braddock, who is now Captain Britain. This team is probably one of my favorite mutant teams I have ever read in the comics, and despite them all kind of being scarily unhinged at the start, I came to love every single member of this team by the end of this series. This version of the Hellions includes Wild Child, Orphan Maker, Nanny, John Greycrow, Havoc, and a former member of Emma Frost's Hellions, Empath. Number 7, Naughty X-Men. I don't know, just the idea that this team exists out there in the multiverse kind of scares me. It's not so much that these X-Men were created to be a sexy variant. It's more that they hail from the bizarre world of the Mojoverse. But also, think of the ratings! Initially, I of course thought that Mojo had created them solely for that purpose, but apparently he did not. They were simply an alternate version of the team that auditioned to replace the Earth 616 team after they seemingly died. Even Mojo wasn't feeling it and ordered them to be dumped, likely implying that they should be permanently removed after they auditioned for him.
At number 6, Earth 666. Earth 666's Avengers of the Undead. Thank you to Sir Striker 6420. In Earth 666, the Avengers aren't your typical superheroes. They're the stuff of nightmares. Picture this. Black Widow is an actual Black Widow. Captain America is not just superhuman, but a ferocious werewolf leading the charge. Daredevil is now a demonic force to be reckoned with, serving justice with a sinister twist. Frankencastle is very clever. A Frankenstein's monster version of the Punisher, Frank Castle, embracing the macabre. Hawkeye, more like Hawk's Eye, an avian sharpshooter taking aim with razor-sharp precision. Thor, once the god of thunder, is now a mummified deity wielding ancient powers. Spider-Man is literally a Spider-Man human hybrid. I mean, it speaks for itself. And who could forget Wolverine, the lord of the vampires, sticking his fangs into his victims with relish. In Earth 666, the Avengers are a terrifying ensemble, defending a world where the living dare not tread, battling for survival in the shadows of the undead. At number 5 is the Void, the opposite alternate of Sentry. Shout out to Zack Schneider 5337 for this suggestion. Void, a malevolent force lurking within the psyche of Robert Reynolds, the Sentry. This dark entity, more of a cosmic concept than a person, embodies his deepest, darkest fears and desires. The Void is the yin to Sentry's yang, a relentless force that threatens to consume not just Earth, but the entire multiverse. It's a chilling alternate superhero where the line between hero and villain blurs as the Sentry battles to keep his inner demon at bay. In this eerie twist on the Avengers, the team's greatest adversary isn't an external threat, but a part of themselves, a haunting reminder of the line between heroism and destruction.
In at 4, Ruins. While Marvel was showcasing their best and brightest with Earth 616, Ruins takes a dark and twisted look at an alternate Marvel Earth where everything could have gone wrong, and it does, in the worst possible ways. The various scientific accidents and experiments that created Marvel's heroes went extremely wrong in the Ruins reality, alright? The Fantastic Four died on their test run in space, Bruce Banner was transformed into a living mass of tumors instead of the Hulk, and Peter Parker's spider bite left him with a terrifyingly infectious disease that ultimately ends up killing the narrator of the story in the truly darkest Marvel timeline. However, this is basically how the creators thought the world would be if the superheroes were real. It is in essence a combination of Earth 616 and our world, with the idea of what would happen realistically if this was our world being the founding thoughts for the Ruined storylines. And it's hella messed up, but I don't think that in this world Bruce would grow tumors, okay? I think he would just die. Probably from cancer, but still, okay, it's a more realistic version, but a much darker version of the realism. Getting close to the end, and at number 3, Earth 666. First appearing in Secret Adventures number 33 from 2012, on Earth 666, everyone in the world is one of the undead, but this isn't Marvel Zombies. I was told not to talk about Marvel Zombies. The living were not endured on this world, nor do they welcome interdimensional police. The Orb of Necromancy was hidden by Brother Voodoo, who put it deep in Shumagorath's ego maze. In the Center Tower, where an undead celestial was located and who was their god, and with the orb, they planned to spread undeath to all of reality. And it's currently in a unique position, as its population is divided between a variety of subtypes of supernatural creatures. Vampires, werewolves, mummies, among others. The divide between the various groups is social and deeply rooted, with parts of the world being ruled by various factions. However, in this world there is some hope, as the greatest heroes of the various groups are united to protect the world as the Avengers of the Undead. Basically, if Marvel met Supernatural, especially that episode where like there was like the Chicago monster families and it was like a parody of the Mafia, that's what's going on. Especially because Captain America's shield is made of vibranium, not silver. Get it? Cause Cap's a werewolf this time? The alternative to the number 666 in some translations of the Bible is actually 616, the number used for Marvel's Prime Earth, so there you go. But ultimately, in number 2, Hulk number 3. The world first explored in Hulk number 3 from 2021 is quite an interesting one. Here we meet another Bruce Banner who doesn't actually have a Hulk form. Instead, his Game of Bombs were a success, but the government then took them and then started using them against their enemies, which caused intense radiation that turns those affected into, as the military called them, bio-waste casualties, which in this reality are their own versions of Hulk and She-Hulk, horrifically disfigured for the most part. This Earth's version of Bruce ends up disposing of these Hulks by throwing them into the void, which even he doesn't know where it sends them. Although, if I'm being honest, this kind of reminds me of the Rick Potion number 9 episode of Rick and Morty season 1. You know, like the one where Morty wants to go to the dance with Jessica, but he ends up giving her like a love potion, but it's flu season, and then Rick tries to fix everyone by turning everyone into praying mantises, and then a combination of like a load of different DNAs that was supposed to equal human but doesn't. Yeah, that's kind of how I see these Hulks, but to not such an extreme where Bruce needs to like change worlds. And finally, into number 1, the Cancerverse. The Cancerverse is a reality where life finally defeated death, with eternal life being fueled by the many-angled ones. Every living being in this universe was corrupted and turned to their servitude, resulting in a universe-wide living corpse, which means that they aren't zombies, okay, since zombies are undead and nobody in this earth can die. Before the death of Captain Marvel, with no cure or anything to save him, his terminal condition caused such distress among the people who adored him. Across the universe, all the empathetic trauma was sensed by the many-angled ones. They reached out to the dying Marvel to give them one simple truth: even death may die. While Avengers, Defenders, X-Men, Fantastic Four, and other heroes were present for a vigil at his deathbed at this point, Marvel transmuted his closest allies, among them the Avengers, now the Revengers. Despite the opposition of many, including seemingly at least members of the Machine Resistance, the corrupted heroes performed a ritual known as necropsy, sacrificing the avatar of death on the spacecraft sanctuary and consequently annihilating death itself. Yeah, in a 10 Reverse Flash. Now I know what you're thinking, but isn't Eobard known as the villain Reverse Flash? But he's a villain, he's not Barry. Okay, look, alright, I get it. In the main continuity, yes, but in the dark multiverse Flashpoint story, Eobard actually becomes the Flash, and he kind of became his own form of hero in a way, like a dark, twisted, messed up hero hellbent on eradicating the human race and just subjugating all superheroes to his will, but hey, that's still kind of a hero, right? Technically it counts. And I mean, like, he's still scary and another version of the Flash, so yes, it does. This is a universe where Barry Allen dies while trying to get his powers back with Flashpoint Batman, aka Thomas Wayne. But he dies, and the Reverse Flash kind of takes his place. But once he tries to stop the war between Aquaman and Wonder Woman by threatening them and killing Arthur, you know that there's going to be some hell to pay. So he sets out on shaping the world into his own image. This involves preventing Batman from ever becoming Batman and instead creating his own superhero team full of versions of the characters we know and love, but all with Reverse Flash logos somewhere on their suits usually. And I have to say, preventing Batman from being created is probably the smartest thing that Eobard has ever done, or could have done in this situation, because either way, no matter who becomes Batman, Batman is always going to lead some form of resistance. So by eliminating Batman being created, you stopped just a resistance rising against you, so good on you. And at 9, Gorilla Grodd Flash. Grodd Friended Me is the 13th episode of the 6th season of The Flash, and is the 127th episode overall. In this episode, Grodd comes to Barry as a projection of Joe, and tells Barry that he is aware of his progressions made post-crisis. He asks Barry to assist him with getting to the Gorilla City that is now on Earth Prime, so he can at least be happy among his own kind, because currently he was locked up at Argus. Barry realizes that they have to try something new and overlook the past, and they need to work together to beat the Salivar that is in Grodd's mind. Barry and Grodd combine their brains briefly, giving Grodd super speed powers. Barry tells Team Flash what's going on, and Frost discovers that on the off chance that they don't end up separating their brains the exact moment that they escape, they're both going to die. While in the Mindscape though, Barry educates Grodd on how to utilize his speed against Salivar, and he succeeds with Barry's help. Barry awakens in reality, successfully disconnected from Grodd's mind. So yeah, a telepathic psychic gorilla with super speed after combining with the fastest man alive, yeah, that's gonna be a no for me, dog. Actually though, it was a pretty sick episode. And at 8, Speed Demon. Speed Demon, first introduced in Speed Demon number 1, is, aside from what your ex-girlfriends might have called you, a combination of Barry Allen and Johnny Blaze. Blaze Allen was a circus daredevil who sold his soul to become the first Speed Demon, and yes, there are multiple. The demon component Etrigan was actually formerly Jay Garrick before the Night Spectre stole Jay's soul. The Night Spectre approached Blaze and asked him to serve in his mission to collect the souls of the most pure and the most corrupt, which just sounds like a dream job to me, but whatever. Blaze Allen refused, so in an attempt to persuade him at his wedding, Night Spectre stole his wife's soul. He stole Iris's soul, yep. Blaze then accepted the bond, hoping to get Iris back, or at least ensure her safety, but of course, he pulls back. That's not gonna happen, bro. Speed Demon speaks only in rhymes, but is a speedster with a flaming skull head that can also breathe hellfire. Wally West, an amalgam of Danny Ketch and obviously Wally West, was the next Speed Demon who accepted the power in order to help his uncle get Iris back. It's interesting because, like, I would give up my soul for super speed. Are you kidding me? And the ability to breathe fire? Speaking in rhymes is great. Yeah, that's right. You better not hate. And at 7, Mercury Flash. Mercury Flash is a robotic version of the Flash made by Doc Tornado as a member of his Metal League. The robot uses a mercury-based physiology, whatever that means, that can make it somehow able to channel the Speed Force, and like the actual Speed Force, not even a fake one. I don't understand how this man not only learned about the Speed Force, but was also able to replicate or siphon it off using mercury, but whatever. It's comics, okay? You don't really need an explanation as long as it helps the plot. First being introduced in the Multiversity Guidebook number 1 in March of 2015, this version of the Flash can do everything the normal Flash can do powers wise, but because, you know, he's a robot, can't really do human activities, but he also has the added advantage of being a robot, so he doesn't really fear death. Not only is it in his code to not fear death, but he can also just be repaired. This version of the Flash hails from Earth 44, and I kinda really want to be him. No responsibilities, only running super fast and drinking motor oil. That's the dream. And at 6, Zombie Spider-Man. Okay, so technically this is Spider-Man, but it's a zombie version of Spider-Man, but I'm gonna count it anyway, because this is pretty damn messed up, zombie or not. On Earth 2149, an alien plague ends up infecting all superpowered individuals and turns them into zombies. However, it's later revealed that the Necronomicon from the Evil Dead was actually what caused this plague. But after learning that the plague was really bad, since I guess the fact that they were calling it a plague wasn't enough, or the fact that the world had to shut down, so the population wasn't wiped out, Peter ran home to get Aunt May and Mary Jane the hell out of Dodge. But when he got there, we got a good old case of Parker Luck, protagonist syndrome. Boom, zombie spider. He ends up becoming a zombie as soon as he gets home and eats the 2 most important women in his life. He also fractured his jaw before becoming a zombie, so he could open his mouth more, I guess. Or kinda like man spider it. Yeah, it's not a pretty sight. Like, even by zombie standards, it's whew. Halfway through into number 5, Man-Spider. Man-Spider is the mutated form of Spider-Man which appeared in both the comics and the 1990s animated series, with his original appearance actually coming from the animated series. In the 90s cartoon, Spider-Man's transformation into the Man-Spider was not caused deliberately like it was in the comics, but as a result of his body mutating further from the original spider bite that gave him his powers. After his attempts to ask Professor X and the X-Men for help developing a cure meet with failure, Spider-Man turned to his friend Dr. Mariah Crawford for aid. Unfortunately, his initial attempt to cure himself resulted in him accelerating the actual mutation process and growing 4 new arms. The accelerated mutation subsequently caused him to mutate into the Man-Spider after fighting the Punisher and a recently mutated Michael Morbius. The mutated Spider-Man retained some of his memories and his emotional responses to seeing loved ones or people who reminded him of his loved ones but could not communicate with them. Eventually, during the final episode of the storyline called Neurogenic Nightmare, Dr. Connors reprogrammed devices that Vulture was using to absorb youth from other people and caused him to give Peter back his spider powers but not the mutation, resulting in the Vulture mutating into Man-Spider, although somehow he had gotten rid of this mutation off screen later in the series. It's also worth noting that the introduction of Man-Spider in the comics, which was thanks to this animated series, is actually what introduced the biological web shooters from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man into the comics as well.
Number 4, Poison. Ever since the first time Venom and Spider-Man bonded together, that pesky little symbiote would continuously try to merge with Peter Parker, but he would only get about halfway before Peter could repel him. Now what happens if Venom finally gets what he wants? Well, in the What If Spider-Man The Other story, we get to find out. After Peter is semi-defeated by Morlun and cocoons himself under Brooklyn Bridge, he is offered the chance to be resurrected by the Spider God called The Other. But instead of allowing this like he does in the normal continuity, Peter refuses and is instead stuck in his cocoon, half alive. Now we cut to Venom, who, being Spider-Man's crazy ex-girlfriend, senses the vulnerability of his soulmate and completely ditches his current host, Mac Gargan. He intercepts Peter's body, and after months of struggling inside the cocoon, monstrously breaking down Peter Parker, Venom fully bonds to Peter. Now the pair are truly one and the same, with all the fully realized powers that come with being a symbiote, which include being able to replicate itself and host more than one body, producing stingers that are strong enough to pierce Luke Cage's skin, and the newly dubbed being, known as Poison, was even able to resurrect Gwen Stacy in a form that seems to take after Venom's offspring, Carnage. Number 3, Spider-Man Pestilence. Yes, that's right, everyone's favorite web slinger was a Horseman of Apocalypse at more than one point, but every time he has been, he was Pestilence. So yes, you lucky nerds are getting 2 points in one here. Look at that. Don't say I never gave you anything, ever. On Earth 5701, Peter goes full spider in his horseman form with 4 arms and 4 legs. It's actually super freaky and I do not like it. He, Archangel, and Famine are tasked with going on a merry reality hopping hunt of Cable, which they ultimately fail at. Now in the Earth 10082 reality, Peter is Pestilence again, but a different kind of terrifying as he is fused with his Pestilence steed because of the techno-organic virus, becoming all white and hairy and pure nightmare fuel. He's like a person with a horse on him. It's scary. He and the other horsemen of this reality go to the mainline Earth to fight the Avengers with Apocalypse, and they kind of lose, but whatever. Number 2, Spider-Man. In Spider-Geddon number 3 of 2018, we are introduced to Spider-Man, a colony of thousands of radioactively powered spiders who in a moment of absolute horror consumed a high school kid by the name of Peter Parker when he fell into their enclosure at Horizon Labs. After consuming Peter Parker, something strange happened. Instead of the spiders just going about their lives, the whole gaggle of spiders gained a sort of hive mind and they took on the form of Peter himself and began fighting crime in the aptly named Cruel York of Earth 11580. Other than his usual Spider-Man powers and the benefits of being a swarm of spiders, the colony is also able to poison its victims with a bite, or if they're hungry for power, they can devour them whole, and it's incredibly hard to actually take out this version of Spider-Man, as even a single spider of the thousands who make up this being survives. It means technically, Spider-Man is also still alive, and it can and will eventually multiply to rebuild itself, or himself, or their self, whatever you want to call him. I don't know. And finally, in at number 1 today, it's Patton Parnell. I think this is the most terrifying version of Spider-Man I've ever seen. Maybe even more so than Spider-Man, and he's a colony of spiders. Patton Parnell is nothing like Peter Parker. He's a sociopath, a maniac, and he has the ability to transform into a monster Spider-Man hybrid with 8 eyes, 8 limbs, and massive spider-like fangs. Seeing this bald monster thing crawl around your walls and ceiling, that's scary enough, but knowing that he ate at least 3 people, including his uncle, and can implant hundreds of baby spiders into you just by biting you is absolutely nightmare-inducing. Luckily, he gets defeated pretty soon after his creation by Morlun, but at the time, Patton Parnell from Earth 51412 was around. He was very, very powerful and extremely scary.
Number 10, Reverend Bruce Wayne. Reverend Bruce isn't particularly scary to begin with, but the world he comes from and the fight he fights is definitely scary. This is a version of Batman who isn't just taking up the mantle to fight his parents' killers and rid Gotham of crime, but instead is attempting to fight against a whole political and societal system. In the Elseworlds story Batman Holy Terror, the course of history is changed somewhat so that America is basically still part of the Commonwealth. As such, it turns out that the seemingly random mugging and murder of Bruce's parents was not actually so random, and was actually a government hit that was later made to look like a mugging gone wrong. When Reverend Bruce finds out about this, he dons a demon costume that once belonged to his father Thomas and sets out to investigate. He also goes on to find out about government-run human experiments and an alien whom they captured, raised, and later killed with green rocks when he became too hard to control. Poor would-be Superman. Number 9. Gods and Monsters Batman. This version of Batman is not Bruce Wayne, but is instead Kirk Langstrom. In this reality, there is no Bruce Wayne to take up the mantle, and so Kirk ends up with the name himself. Not because he was inspired by a bat smashing through a window, of course, but because he is kind of actually part vampire bat. Kirk was a brilliant scientist who was working on a cure for lymphoma. He eventually figured out how to create this cure using bat saliva and nanotech to strengthen his experimental treatment. However, while it succeeded in curing his cancer, it also turned Kirk into a pseudo-vampire. While he remains a hero and typically only ingests artificially created plasma or even animals' blood, which can also help him to survive, he has also been known to feed on criminals from time to time. He's like, these criminals, nah, I gotta eat, they kinda deserve it, I'm just gonna eat them. And friends, before we move on to our next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more scary alternate Batman lists, of which, let's be real, there's a lot of scary alternate Batman out there, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Spooky thumbs up, spooky spook. Number 8, DCEU Batman, or Batfleck if you prefer. Ben Affleck's Batman from Batman vs Superman especially is a much darker figure in comparison to the comics, and kind of in comparison to a lot of other Batmen that have been on the big screen. This is a version of the hero who has decided that he is willing to kill when he needs to. All in all, it seems to be implied that the death of Jason Todd is what reshaped Batman's morals here and caused him to readjust his code. Not only does he kill, but he also does something even worse in my opinion, branding some of the worst criminals that he fights against with a literal bat brand. These are the criminals that Batman has deemed to have done something completely unforgivable. And the thing is that people in prison in Gotham also know the significance of the Bat brand, meaning that those who end up with one are basically marked for death. The idea here is that the inmates will carry out the death sentence that Batman has marked them with because they know that whatever this person did, it was one of the worst crimes, otherwise they wouldn't have this brand. So not only is there an extra layer of fear, but this also shows a complete disregard for human life. I mean, at least a disregard for human life when it comes to really, really terrible criminals. Batman wants these criminals to live in fear, and he doesn't care what happens to them in prison. In fact, he kinda hopes that they end up dead. Number 7, Batman the Silenced. One perfect spine-chilling dark multiverse tale that I have loved, which even comes with its own creepy lullaby, is the Tales from the Dark Multiverse Batman Hush. In this story, we get a reimagined narrative where Batman's childhood friend, Thomas Elliot, is the one who ends up messing up Bruce's life. Tommy in his adult years allies himself with many of Gotham's villains and more usually anti-hero types after Bruce Wayne ends up in Arkham Asylum, which also was kind of part of his doing. However, Bruce isn't quite as checked out as he's been pretending to be, and he ends up escaping in order to get revenge and taking up the mantle of Batman the Silence, an alternate version basically of Hush, and of course an alternate version of Batman. Number 6. Marvel Zombies. What makes the Marvel Zombies reality version of the X-Men so scary? How about the fact that most of them were killed off and those that did survive became bloodthirsty zombies? I think the idea of that should be enough to make your blood run cold. Marvel Zombies is a brutal reality known as Earth Z or Earth 2149. While we don't know much about what this world was like before the zombies arrived, it's expected that for the most part it was pretty similar to Earth 616, except for a few minor differences as far as I can tell. The X-Men end up getting attacked early on by Alpha Flight, and those members of the team that survive then go on to fight alongside one of the last standing mutants of the living, Magneto, who becomes sort of like their new leader in this reality. Also, I gotta say, you know you're in some bleak reality when Magneto becomes the leader of the X-Men. I feel like I have yet to see a reality where he leads the X-Men that is without some extreme element of darkness, other than of course the main continuity. Number 5. Dark Reign. During the Dark Reign event, we didn't just have a Dark Avengers team. We also had a Dark X-Men team as well. Dark Reign was an event that happened in 2009. It followed Secret Invasion. After Norman Osborn was broadcast on live television taking out the threat of the Skrull Queen, Varanki, who led the Skrull invasion of Earth, Norman was celebrated as a hero. Surprised? I know. He was made the head of the organization created to replace S.H.I.E.L.D., which at this time was fully debunked. Norman named his organization Hammer and created his own Dark Avengers team. As with his Dark Avengers team, the Dark X-Men team members were also selected by Osborn, for the most part anyway. The team included Mystique, Emma Frost, who was Black Queen at the time, Namor, Dawkins Wolverine, Mimic, Omega, Cloak, and Dagger, who have both been, I think, disputed mutants in the past, and the alternate version of Hank McCoy known as Dark Beast, who hails from the Age of Apocalypse reality. Number 4. New Dark X-Men. Madeline Pryor leads this new team of Dark X-Men. The team was put together by her when she felt compelled to take action. As Madeline says to Havoc in issue number 1 of Dark X-Men, "You should know by now that I'll wage war against anyone if I think it's just." Donning her new Crown of Mercy. Yep, Maddie gets her own team of X-Men in the second volume of Dark X-Men, which began just this year in 2023. As of issue number 2, the team has grown to include Havoc, Gambit, Maggot, Azazel, Monet's brother Marius St. Croix as M-Plate, New Mutant Feint from Children of the Atom, where she was formerly introduced as Gimmick, and Zero, who actually possesses Wolverine's android clone, Albert. What a weird, wacky series. I really need to add this one to my reading list. Sounds great to me. Number 3. Gamma Earth. The fate of the X-Men here was tragic, hence why I'm including them here on my list. They hail from the reality we get a glimpse into in Donny Cates and Ryan Ottley's Hulk series from 2021, and it's issue number 5. Here we get to see what a future world is like after it has been fully gamma irradiated thanks to gamma bombs that went off the world over. This is because in this reality, Banner was able to test the bomb, not needing to actually save Rick Jones. As such, the bomb testing continued to the point that the weapon was perfected, handed over to the US military. They used it to do things like wipe out all mutants, considering them a threat. Yikes. Number 2. Reichsman. The Reichsmen come from a world where Germany and Axis won during World War II. They made their first appearance in Excalibur Weird War 3, issue number 1, and they are about as weird and disturbing as you would imagine them to be. This reality, Earth 597, is also home to the disturbing alternate version of the Excalibur team known as the Lightning Force. The Reichsmen are led by Herr Moira McTaggart, Reich's Minister of Genetics, with the team including alternate versions of Havoc, Psylocke, Rogue, Storm, and Banshee. Number 1. Days of Future Past. This X-Men team did not fare so well, so they literally reached back into the past to get help so that their future could be prevented from ever coming to pass. In this reality, known as Days of Future Past, named after the story it appears in, or as designated reality number Earth 811, mutants end up being hunted down by Sentinels who take over. Not only are the X-Men almost all gone or dead or otherwise locked up and contained for being mutants, as well as all of the mutant population, stripped of their rights and freedoms, but non-mutant superheroes heroes were also wiped out as well. It's truly a bleak reality. This team of X-Men is able to get a message back to their past selves thanks to the help of Wolverine, who breaks them out, giving Rachel Summers and Kitty Pryde in this timeline enough cover for Kitty to travel back in time through her own consciousness.
And it sends Superior Spider-Man. Superior Spider-Man is actually Otto Octavius, who prior to the Superior Spider-Man storyline had brain swapped with Peter. Yet a piece of Peter still remained in his own body and didn't die in Otto's body, which ended up convincing Otto to be a hero, albeit a darker one. This small bit of Peter that was left in his body was also trying to regain control, for obvious reasons, because a superhero was piloting his bone mech. This small bit of Peter though was at times able to interfere or even control Otto temporarily. One of these moments came in Superior Spider-Man number 8, where there was a device that was capable of wiping Peter from Otto's brain, but to get the actual item, Otto had to perform surgery on a little girl. However, Peter didn't think that Otto was actually able to do it, so he tries to stop Otto from even performing the surgery, but he also didn't want him to get the thing that would wipe him from his brain. Also, Otto did this surgery while having his Spider-Man mask on and an additional face mask. But either way, this version of Spider-Man was definitely more ruthless and willing to kill, since he was still technically a supervillain. And at 9, Kane. The clone that would come to be known as Kane was the Jackal's first attempt at cloning Peter Parker. Initially thought to be a success, Kane eventually became deformed due to a flaw in the cloning process, and he continued to degenerate, and he was left further deformed and mentally unstable. Aren't we all? The Jackal allowed Kane to live as like a test subject to see how long he would be able to survive, and it ended up exceeding Jackal's expectations. As a result though, Kane experienced a strong feeling of rejection that might be kind of like a father-son kind of thing, you know what I mean. Kane left and realized that the degeneration that had caused his mental state to decline had also amplified his powers that he had genetically kind of inherited from Peter. His strength, speed, stamina, and agility were also comparable to those of Peter, but he also gained precognitive powers as well, which showed him flashes of the future, which seemed to be sort of an amplified spider sense. He also possessed a mark of Cain, which was a corrosive touch that he used to leave eaten away handprints on victims' faces, which is pretty damn scary if you ask me. Also, if you're enjoying this video and want to see more, be sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because it really helps us out against the algorithm almighty. Also, I'm dressed as Spider-Man and talking about Spider-Man, so I feel like that's worth a like. And at 8, Pestilence Spider-Man. When Apocalypse started his plans for world domination, he captured 4 people who he saw as being good enough to be his horsemen and corrupted them. Spider-Man became the horseman known as Pestilence. Pestilence was one of the horsemen that Deadpool, Cannonball, and Siren encountered in their alternate reality search for Cable. And even though Pestilence was accompanied in the fight by Famine and Archangel, all 3 of them were defeated. This version of Peter Parker has the same powers as his 616 counterpart, except this time they've been augmented by Apocalypse when he corrupted them. But I mean, like a Spider-Man who is literally a horseman of the apocalypse and asks people if they will scream while he sucks the marrow from their bones, I think it's safe to say that this guy's pretty damn scary. And he made his first appearance in 2005, which makes this character around the same age that Peter was when he got his powers, which is kind of ironic. He hails from Earth 5701, which is the age of Apocalypse Earth. And at 7, Ghost Spider. Ghost Spider comes from Earth 11638, and in this reality, Peter Parker's Uncle Ben never died, and actually ended up helping Peter to train as a hero with his new spider powers, becoming the Amazing Spider, a famous and popular superhero who also became a rich and successful scientist, having his own company called Parker Technologies. With his resources and motivation from Uncle Ben, the Amazing Spider used transportation technology to bring Spider-Men from other universes to his and absorb their powers to increase his. After bringing the Spider-Man from Earth 616 to his Earth though, and making him believe that he arrived in this universe by accident, the Amazing Spider was weakened by the feedback of the dimensional portal. Eventually, the Amazing Spider was convinced that what he was doing was not in fact heroic and allowed himself to die. But after dying, the Sorcerer Supreme of Dr. Banner, infused Peter's spirit that was trapped in hell with the powers of the damned, causing him to become a form of Ghost Rider, calling himself the Ghost Spider. And honestly, this is one of the baddest spider suits of all time. I love it. If I could figure out a way to cosplay this, I would.
Number 6, Vampire Batman. This alternate version of Batman comes to us from the alternate Earth 43. As his moniker describes, he is a version of Bruce Wayne who transforms into a more literal version of Batman when he becomes a vampire. Batman. Get it? Cause vampire bats. Oddly enough, this is also not the only version of Batman in the multiverse that also happens to be a vampire. As you already know, because we talked about Gods and Monsters Batman as well, who's also a vampire. Despite being a vampire on Earth 43, Bruce still fights on the good side, fighting against his vampiric urges to feed on human blood. At least, initially he fights against them. At one point, Vampire Bats asks Alfred to stake him in order to prevent him from giving in to his bloodlust, after he seemingly killed the Joker by draining him of all of his blood. However, a stake through the heart doesn't actually kill Batman here, but simply leaves him in a coma. Months later, Gotham is in a pretty bad place without Batman's presence, and Alfred is forced to awaken him in hopes that Gotham will once more have a savior. Batman does go about taking out criminals, but in a very vampiric way, creating a bloodbath as his time staked and his bodily decay has resulted in the loss of his sanity. So he's there and he's killing criminals, but he's like killing criminals, and it's like a lot. Number 5. The Merciless. This alternate version of Bruce is one who ends up wielding the power of Ares in the memory of Wonder Woman. Oh yeah, and he's also the one who fought with Diana to the very end against Ares before he inevitably was kind of forced to kill her. Or forced in his eyes, but in our eyes we're like, Bruce, don't do that. Don't do it. This alternate version of Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, hails from the dark multiverse of Earth at -42 and is one of the Batman Who Laughs Dark Knights. To me, he represents Bruce's obsession with power and symbolizes what could very well happen if this was left unchecked. Bruce here loved Diana, but still ended up betraying her because he knew that she would not allow him to keep the power of Ares for himself, and that she would rather destroy such power. So he was like, I gotta hold on to the power because I'm doing great with it, so I guess I gotta kill ya. But also, he wasn't doing that great with it. Spoiler alert.
At number 4 is Wolverine Noir. In the shadowy realms of this alternate universe, we stumble upon Jim Logan, a character shrouded in mystery and intrigue. This noir iteration of Wolverine takes us on a journey through the Marvel Noirverse, offering a distinctive twist on the iconic mutant. In this iteration, Logan isn't a berserker on the battlefield, but a detective navigating the murky waters of crime. It's a fitting role for a man with heightened senses and a knack for tracking. Wolverine Noir paints a gritty picture of reminiscent of classic noir films, amplifying the eerie ambience that defines this universe. This version delves into Wolverine's past, mirroring the harrowing narrative from his origin series. Raised by a fervently religious father, Jim's childhood is the haunting tale of sermons and strife, shaping his path into the detective he becomes. So while we've seen Logan in countless forms, Jim Logan's chilling incarnation stands out as one of the most intriguing and unsettling alternate versions of this iconic character. At number 3 is Phoenix Wolverine. In the realm of eerie alternate Wolverines, the incarnation known as Phoenix Logan takes a chilling spot on our list. Picture a grim future where Thor ascends to the All-Father status and Loki, the ever-malevolent trickster, decimates humanity just to torment his brother. And this apocalyptic landscape, Wolverine, after his own demise, becomes a new vessel for the awe-inspiring Phoenix Force. With this cosmic power coursing through his adamantium-laced veins, Wolverine exhibits an array of mind-bending abilities, even at one point going as far as to save Loki from the formidable Celestials. However, the terror takes on a different twist when a future iteration of Doctor Doom crosses this Wolverine's path, obliterating him. Yet thanks to the Phoenix Force, his demise is merely a minor setback. To secure Doctor Doom's defeat, Logan willingly sacrifices himself, channeling his power through Thor's mighty Mjolnir in the relentless battle. At number 2 is Akihiro. Akihiro, also known as Daken or Fang, is a chilling alternate version of Wolverine. During the Dark Reign storyline, when Norman Osborn took control of the comics, Daken emerges as a sinister counterpart. See, Osborn had formed Hammer and the Dark Avengers, a team comprised of rebranded villains as Avengers replacements. While Osborn attempted to recruit original Avengers, most of them declined. Daken, however, joined as Dark Wolverine. Akihiro might not currently be villainous, but during that time, he was a bona fide baddie. What makes him terrifying in the series is his lack of a moral code, even compared to his father, who isn't known for his strength. Daken, like Wolverine, is a highly skilled fighter and assassin, groomed from childhood to be a lethal weapon for Romulus against Logan. This alternate version of Wolverine is a dark reflection of the iconic hero. And at number 1 is Dark Claw. Dark Claw, a fusion of Marvel's Wolverine and DC's Batman from the Amalgam Universe, is undeniably one of the scariest alternate versions of Wolverine. Imagine the brooding intensity of Batman mixed with the raw, animalistic ferocity of Wolverine. It's a chilling combination, and Dark Claw inherits Bruce Wayne's wealth and tragic backstory, ensuring that he's a complex and deeply haunted character. But what truly sets him apart is his adamantium-coated skeleton and healing factor borrowed from Wolverine, obviously. This mending of two iconic charismatic, fear-inducing heroes creates a formidable force. Darkclaw embodies the fear of the night, blending the relentless pursuit of justice with the untamed power of Wolverine's regenerative abilities and his claws. Crossing paths with Logan Wayne would send shivers down anyone's spine.
In at 10, Hyena. Hyena, first introduced in Legends of the Darkclaw #1 from 1996, is a combination of DC's The Joker and Marvel's Sabretooth. He is the archenemy of Darkclaw, a combination of DC's Batman and Marvel's Wolverine. His real name is Creed Harley Quinn. The Canadian government initiated the Weapon X project. Logan and Quinn of the RCAF were both accepted as candidates for the project, along with 4 other volunteers. Logan's latent metamutant healing factor kicks in, which allows him to survive the adamantium crafting process, and Creed survives as well, but becomes a remorseless killing machine, exactly what the project was hoping for. Creed's sanity does not fare as well, and he eventually goes rogue, because of course he's going to. And Indestructible, known as adamantium, was also bonded to Creed's skeleton as well as Logan's, and he was given claws made of the same substance. Unlike Darkclaw, however, Creed was physically deformed as a result of the experiment and went insane. Project X also triggered metamutant abilities in Creed, who became known as Hyena. Hyena, also known as the Cackling Canine, will not stop his maniacal grinning until his arch nemesis Darkclaw is destroyed. He also has a gang called the Pack, which is actually kinda cute, but still terrifying. And at 9, Martha Wayne. When Barry Allen altered the timeline so that his mother lived, a lot changed, along with Martha Wayne. She had initially been the mother to Bruce Wayne, who would have become Batman when she was killed in the alleyway by Joe Chill, but Barry's mom surviving somehow resulted in her and her husband, Thomas Wayne, surviving Joe Chill's fateful ambush, but their son dying as a result. Butterfly effect, I guess. This ultimately broke her, driving her completely insane from grief and having her adopt the identity of the Joker, as well as committing various crimes in Gotham, also resulting in Thomas becoming a vigilante known as Batman in an attempt to stop her. By the time of the Flashpoint saga, she had kidnapped the twin sons of Harvey Dent without leaving a ransom note, and then, at her hideout in Wayne Manor, manipulated Commissioner Gordon into shooting the daughter by dressing her up in a Joker outfit, and then murdered the Commissioner. Eventually, Batman arrived, and she had proceeded to bludgeon her former husband with a hammer, an action that Batman willingly endured for a chance at getting a glimpse of the remaining psyche of his former wife. Ultimately, he managed to temporarily get through to her and revealed that they may have a chance of actually undoing the events that happened, although it may result in her deaths. She accepted though, because she wanted her son to live, but apparently not become Batman. And at 8, Suicide Squad. The Joker is an infamously extreme and formidable psychopathic crime lord in Gotham City in this movie, being at the very top of the city's criminal underworld, greatly feared by all those other crime bosses and criminals. Though he is devoid of empathy or pity for anybody taking part in his wicked schemes, either by intimidation or fraud, the Joker used to adore his on-again, off-again girlfriend and partner in crime Harley Quinn, doing his utmost to rescue her from Task Force X and the clutches of Amanda Waller, with eventual success. I mean, like, he was in the movie for like 5 minutes total, but like, it's better than nothing, right? For unknown reasons though, he later broke up with Harley, leaving her on her own and the target of many of his enemies. This version from the DCEU was certainly a darker and more brutal Joker than what we've been seeing in the comics now, not relying on Batman and being more willing to kill like he was in the golden age of comics, much along the lines of the 3 Joker revelation from the Mobius chair, since this version also killed Robin in the DCEU prior to the events of the movie. However, some also believe that the Joker is a mentally unstable version of Robin, which could be revealed to be true, but I don't know if they're actually going to reveal it and just let it be a theory. And yes, I was doing this to show the mask multiple times. And at 7, Emperor Joker. Emperor Joker was the form the Joker took after tricking Mr. Mxyzptlk into donating 99.99% of his powers to the Joker. He gave him 99.99% of his powers accidentally. As a direct result, he became near omnipotent and created a hellish world in his own image. At some point, the imp from the 5th dimension, Mr. Mxyzptlk, attempted to see what a member of the regular realm would do with his power and selected the Joker. He intended on only donating 1% of his power to the Joker, but the Mad Clown tricked him into revealing his true name and thus ended up gaining 99.99% of the powers, and proceeded to transform existence within 69 seconds. nice, into a realm made in his own image, which was a twisted caricature, and with everyone stuck in a loop. Emperor Joker continually tortured and killed Batman every single day, only to bring him back to life and do it all over again. As could be expected, Emperor Joker took pride in these particular killings due to the unique relationship the two characters continued to share. Although this relationship is also the Joker's undoing, since he was still defined by being the Batman's antagonist, and he was beaten by a dog of all things. Okay, well, it was Superman as a dog, but still. Joker with near absolute power? No thanks. And at 6, Savitar. As a fan of the Arrowverse, I had to include this one, okay? He's one of the most interesting speedsters on the show. Savitar, while sharing a name with another evil speedster from the comics, is actually revealed to be a time remnant of Barry Allen, being more of a future Flash than actual Savitar. He's a combination of the two. His story is pretty messed up, in essence making himself to have a classic chicken and the egg scenario, as Cisco would put it, where he caused himself to be created. In the post-Flashpoint Arrowverse timeline, Savitar comes back from the future to kill Iris West before her and Barry get married. This causes Barry to create as many time remnants as possible in order to stop him, but Savitar kills them all except for one. The one that he spares ends up getting shunned by the rest of Team Flash for not being the real Barry Allen, even though he still technically is the real Barry. It's weird. So in an act of fury, the time remnant runs back in time, creating a new identity for himself as the first speedster and the god of speed called Savitar. And then he comes back. He burns his face at some point, and then he tries to kill what would have been his wife, and he like remembers everything. He's in love with her, but he still tries to kill her. Yeah, I don't get it, but it's still pretty damn scary. Halfway through into number 5, Black Lantern Reverse Flash. The Black Lantern Corps is a group of various dead superheroes and villains alike who were raised by Nekron and each given a Black Lantern ring. This ring grants them power over death, and these rings are powered by the Anti-Monitor, as he is present within the Black Lantern power battery. Those raised by the Black Lantern ring are in essence resurrected to where they were before death, but their mind is warped to serve Nekron's purpose. Those with the ring have various powers, including a healing factor, aura recognition, which allows them to see powerful emotions, energy spectrum assimilation, which lets them extract the hearts of individuals that they've slain and then use their last feelings to charge the central battery and their ring by 0.1%, and they, much like zombies, can infect others by biting them. A bite from a Black Lantern will slowly kill the one bitten, and then would turn them into Black Lanterns upon death. Basically zombies with superpowers, in addition to being an evil speedster, so definitely not something that you should be trifling with. And at 4, Johnny Quick. Johnny Allen, also known as Johnny Quick, is a criminal speedster from Earth 3. Together with his girlfriend and partner in crime Atomica, he was a member of the crime syndicate. Johnny Allen was a high-profile criminal on the run with his equally criminal girlfriend when he was cornered on the roof of Central City's Star Labs. Allen was struck by a bolt of lightning which shattered the roof, and the duo fell into the lab space below. With Allen landing amid the chemicals, something in this incident granted him super speed, and went on to become a powerful supercriminal alongside his girlfriend, who also had been empowered. While his girlfriend took the name Atomica, he took on the name Johnny Quick. And he ran through the city, answering to no one, until the day the White House burned. Around the time of Darkseid's incursion into Prime Earth, the being that had destroyed Ultraman's Krypton came to Earth, and an alliance of supercriminals formed to find a way to safety. Now my question is Johnny Quick the reason Johnny Quick became a speedster? There's the whole storyline where Barry Allen runs so fast that he disintegrates, but then he also time travels and becomes the bolt of lightning that gives him his powers. So technically, did that also happen to Johnny? Getting close to the end in number 3, Godspeed. August Hart is the former detective partner of Barry Allen. August was the only witness to Barry's accident that turned him into the Flash. While going after a criminal organization called the Black Hole, August was also struck by lightning during a Speed Force storm in Central City. So August became the ruthless vigilante known as Godspeed, and got revenge on the one who he suspected to be his brother's killer. He had given up on the justice system since his brother's killer had gone free, and with his newfound power and the ability to become judge, jury, and vibrating executioner, August realized that after he had gotten his powers that he also had the ability to steal other speedsters' speed. Though for a time he could only do it by killing them, he practiced the skill enough to be able to do it non-lethally as well. With his new godlike speed, August was able to move so fast as to create a duplicate of himself at any any given time, allowing him to give the illusion that he and Godspeed were different people, which is pretty damn sick, considering the alternatives are Speed Mirage and Time Remnant, which aren't technically the same thing. Time Remnants just create evil versions of yourself, apparently. Penultimately, and at number 2, Black Flash. The actual physical representation of death for all speedsters, they just can't see this guy coming. Okay, well, they can, but you know what I mean. Black Flash is the Grim Reaper of the Speed Force. Making his first appearance in The Flash Volume 2, number 138 from 1998, he was seen before the deaths of several speedsters, including Barry Allen, Johnny Quick, and Bart Allen. He also tried to return Wally West to the Speed Force, however was unsuccessful, taking Linda Park instead, Wally's girlfriend, which after past experiences, Wally, I feel like he probably did you a favor. But since he was unsuccessful the first time, Black Flash returned to try to claim Wally again, freezing time for everyone without a connection to the Speed Force. But thanks to the combined efforts of multiple speedsters, including Max Mercury, Jay Garrick, Jesse Quick, and Wally, Wally was able to race Black Flash to the end of time, causing death to have no meaning. In the CW, Black Flash was Hunter Zolomon after the season 2 finale, and was killed during season 3 when Savitar lured him out of the Speed Force and Killer Frost froze him, resulting in her first kill that actually turned out to be her ex as well. Dare I say, ice cold. But that didn't stop the Speed Force anyway, since later Barry Allen returned in the Flash Rebirth storyline in the comics, becoming the new Black Flash, until Professor Zoom took over the title after his corpse was raised in the Darkest Night storyline. There's a lot of things going on. Finally, in at number 1, Red Death. Red Death is a speedster that is an evil combination of Batman and the Flash, which already sounds terrifying, but wait until you hear his story. The Bruce Wayne of Earth 52 started off fighting crime with Robin, but Robins kept dying left, right, and center, so understandably he got darker and darker, becoming more extreme with his let's call them methods, shall we? Which honestly seems realistic to me, aside from just quitting to fight crime, but that can't happen, otherwise they wouldn't have a story, right? And DC wouldn't make any money. This eventually leads him to Barry, who refuses to give Bruce his speed, so Batman uses the various Rogues Gallery weapons to fight Barry, knocking him out, and then tying him to the front of a cosmic treadmill-powered Batmobile, and drives them both into the Speed Force. I don't even know how that happened, logically, or why that would have worked in their world, but whatever. You do you, Bat Marty, we gotta get you back to the future. When entering the Speed Force, Barry and Bruce end up fusing together into an evil Batman with super speed and a lust for killing, while Barry's mind was trapped in Bruce's body. He then gets a visit from the Batman who laughs, who just makes him even crazier and wants to help him help conquer the universe, or the multiverse even. So yeah, that's that. He's number 1.
Number 10. Final Crisis Wonder Woman. During the DC event, Final Crisis, Darkseid infects multiple DC heroes with a virus called, and please forgive me if I am pronouncing this wrong, Mortococcus. The virus takes them over and turns them into animal-like creatures. Of course, one of the heroes affected by this virus is Wonder Woman. Basically, after that, she now works for Darkseid and fights against the other DC heroes. Some of the other characters infected with the virus were Catwoman, Batwoman, and Giganta. Number 9. Frank Miller's Wonder Woman. Frank Miller is responsible for a whole bunch of amazing DC stories. Although, sometimes his take on the characters, they're really different than what fans are used to. And sometimes they are not even the biggest fans of them. And that seems to be the case with his take on Wonder Woman, at least during The Dark Knight Returns. During that story, Wonder Woman is basically just a killer, and she kills a lot of people without mercy. She's not the hero that fans are used to. This version of Diana works for Lex Luthor and basically implies that she wants to see all men die. The Wonder Woman we know doesn't kill unless she absolutely needs to and stands up for everyone. So you can see why this version kinda got a mixed response. Number 8. Red Sun Wonder Woman. This version of Wonder Woman comes from the Elseworld story Superman Red Sun, which is considered to be one of Superman's best Elseworlds tales. The story revolves around, what if Superman didn't land in Kansas when he came to Earth, but instead, Soviet Russia. During the story, we also get to see alternate versions of some of our other favorite DC heroes, including Wonder Woman. This version of her is in love with Superman, but he doesn't always show the same amount of affection towards her. And eventually, she starts to hate him. Later on, she ends up going up against him while starting her own, more kind of crazy, bloody versions of the Amazons. It's kind of scary. Number 7. Robot Wonder Woman. Yep, there is a robot Wonder Woman. It was during issue 137, Diana and Steve end up traveling to an alternate Earth. And that Earth is full of robot versions of all the main DC heroes. The robot Wonder Woman sees Steve, and who just so happens not to have a robot double, and wants him all to herself. They then start to compete in a series of trials, and whoever wins gets to be with Steve. Of course, in the end, the regular Wonder Woman wins. But there is a point where Robot Wonder Woman looked like she was about to have Steve all to herself. even though it kind of turns out she was cheating in most of the challenges.
And at 6, Batman Two-Faces. Batman Two-Faces is the DC equivalent to the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story, where ironically, Harvey Dent, also known as Two-Face, isn't the one with the Hyde affliction, but rather Batman himself is. It's the year 1886. Bruce Wayne is organizing a gala to exhibit the Twilight Orchid, a rare flower with unique characteristics. During the day, the flower is exquisitely colored and perfumed and attracts a large amount of insects. At night, however, it turns into a weed, attracting only pests. I know a few people like that. Miss Pamela Isley, Bruce Wayne, Commissioner Gordon, and many of Gotham's finest attend the gala where Two-Face storms in and steals the flower. Bruce reveals that he had hoped to actually create a potion derived from the flower, which was retrieved from Miss Isley's dead hands. A potion which would cure Two-Face from his dual personality. Finalizing the potion, Bruce tests it on himself. He suddenly develops superhuman strength, agility, and a new sense of courage and purpose. He puts together a costume and sets off to battle crime on Two-Face's terms. However, this potion didn't only give him powers, it gave him another personality. The personality of the Joker. Yeah, that's right. In Batman Two-Faces, Bruce Wayne is the Joker, which is pretty frightening for sure. Halfway through into number 5, Batman Bloodstorm. At one point, Gotham City was attacked by a group of vampires led by Dracula. However, the vampires were defeated by Batman, who had become part vampire in the struggle. The Joker later lured the surviving vampires out of their underground lair and convinced them to allow him to be their new leader. The vampires accepted, and the Joker appointed a vampire named Creech to be his second in command. The Joker and his new gang then set out to conquer Gotham's underworld. Their first target was Cardona. The vampires ambushed Cardona and his thugs at their hideout, drank their blood, and transformed them into Night Stalkers like themselves. But yeah, you heard that right. The Joker of Earth 43 is Batman's archenemy, and a non-vampire leading a pack of vampires through fear. The ability to lead a group of vampires through fear is absolutely nuts, because like in every incarnation, vampires aren't really afraid of anything, aside from maybe other vampires or like steaks. Like nice medium steaks. That was a bad joke. You know what I mean, right? Like this is, how crazy is this version of the Joker to try to do that? I don't know. Like holy damn, or I guess unholy damn. Let's go on.
Number 4, Life 9 of Moira X. During the relaunch of the X-Men books, the mutants were given a refresh when it came to their history and when it came to making sense of seemingly all the almost separate lives that they've kind of lived, all the different eras of X-Men. Moira McTaggart was revealed to be a mutant codenamed Moira X, whose power was reincarnation, with her dying and being reborn from her mother's womb once more, but with the knowledge of all the previous lives she had lived prior to that one. Moira's 9th life, the timeline that precedes 616 from her perspective, saw Moira join with Apocalypse in order to try to find a way to protect the mutants against the inevitable. Man who create machines, Sentinels, to destroy them, and in so doing often end up destroying humanity as well. Despite uniting with the powerful mutant Apocalypse in this reality, technology once more ended up being the end of both humanity and mutant kind, with this reality's destruction being linked back to the existence of Nimrod. In order to prevent this dystopian and apocalyptic reality from coming to pass, Moira ends up getting information on how Nimrod was created and allows herself to be killed and reborn with said information so that she might be able to prevent Nimrod from coming online in her next life. And, you know, make the next reality not so awful in the end. Of course, Nimrod has come online, so I'm pretty sure we're all doomed. But anyways, number 3, Earth 21129. Yikes! Is this one scary? Also coming to us from another glimpse into the Darkhold during the Darkhold event. In this reality, we see a darker potential future for Tony Stark, as he works to create his Iron Man suit. In Darkhold Iron Man, Stark creates the suit with the help of his own team of employees and friends, only to discover that removing it also removes his skin with said pieces of armor. Forced to stay within the suit for his own safety, Tony Stark, with help from Pepper Potts, worked tirelessly to find a way to fix this small but very disturbing glitch. In the end, Stark ends up believing that the suit is superior, and as like with the Cybermen of Doctor Who, believes that everyone on Earth should merge with the suit, giving up their more squishy human form in favor of the armor, which is better at protecting them, despite the fact that the suits kinda slowly break down your biological form and fully merge with those who wear them. Disturbing, I know. And then in the end they're like, everyone gets an Iron Man suit. Don't worry, just get in the Iron Man suit. Nothing bad will happen. Number 2, Zombieverse. I wish I could do a list like this without talking about the Marvel Zombieverse, sometimes referred to as Earth Z, but I don't think I can. Also, Connor did his best to stay away from Marvel Zombies on part 1, which means it kind of falls to me to talk about it, because I don't think we can really do a Scariest alternate Marvel Universes series without at least mentioning Marvel Zombies. And then of course the thing with that is if we mention it, the trauma that I have experienced personally from reading the series set in this universe means that I have to boost it up on our list. Yeah, Marvel Zombies has left emotional scars on me, okay? It's stuck with me. Every time I come back to it, I'm like reliving the horror again. Mainly, what still haunts me to this day is the time that zombie Ant-Man captured human Black Panther and kept him alive so that he could saw off pieces of T'Challa to feed on, keeping his former friend as his own little secret snack. Very, very disturbing. I'm sure that'll never come up again, I hope. Number 1, what if zombies? This other alternate zombie reality comes to us from the Marvel and Disney Plus animated show, What If? In this series, we get glimpses into alternate Marvel cinematic realities via the Watcher, who pretty much sees all. Each episode features a standalone story, but these episodes also come together in the end of this first season, as the threads from each story kind of end up connecting when the Watcher creates the Guardians of the Multiverse team to help to defend the various realities against Ultron, who we talked about earlier on. The reason that I put this zombie universe above the comic book one is because despite the small shimmer of hope we get in this episode and in this reality, a lot of heroes still die, and in some cases quite gruesomely. And we know it's not over yet because we're getting a whole Marvel Zombies animated series. Oh boy, I can't wait. Good news is that writer Zeb Wells appears to be the mastermind behind that show, and I love Zeb Wells' writing, so I'm sure I will actually enjoy it. But the bad news is we still got Black Panther sliced up, but this time to defeat a crazy powerful zombified version of Scarlet Witch. Double yikes. Double trauma for Amanda. Why? I was like, they're probably not gonna do that in this episode, and then they did it, and I was like, why? Why did we do this? I can't, I really don't like that part. I don't like it. Oh well, it's over now. Black Panther got away. It's fine. He's fine. Nothing bad will happen, I'm sure, and the world will be saved by our heroes. I'm sure.
At number 10, we have Ultron 59. Coming from the last Avengers storyline, this version of Ultron is probably one of the scariest looking versions of Ultron on the list. With a set of physical features that more so resemble those of a human, this alternate version of Ultron just looks like he's straight out of a nightmare to me. And he means business. And he gets it done too. On Earth 9511 is where his story takes place, and he very nearly gets the upper hand on the Avengers. He actually kills Jesse Wingfoot and then sends forth a horde of Ultrons to fight the heroes for him. As you can imagine, this poses a huge threat to the Avengers, but luckily, Vision is finally able to take out this Ultron by merging with him. It's a pretty harrowing battle, and Ultron 59 is taken out of the fight. For good. Until a new writer decides that isn't the case in the future. But for now, we can all sleep at night knowing that human-looking Ultron 59 is not around anymore, and he can't hurt you.
Number 9, Ultron Extreme. Okay, so Ultron Extreme actually only made a few appearances, I believe, in Avengers Next, which takes place in the MC2 universe, the alternate Earth of 982. The same home reality as Spider-Girl / now Spider-Woman, aka Mayday Parker, Spider-Man and MJ's daughter. Despite having only a few appearances though, I just love the intimidating design for Ultron Extreme, who looks like a super beefy version of Ultron to me, and a super spiky version too. Ultron if he were like a brick wall. His powers are believed to be on a similar level to that of his main continuity, but his intimidating appearance inspired me to put him as one of the lower but still scary points on our list. While Ultron Extreme was seemingly defeated in a single issue, he was pretty powerful and was only seemingly permitted to be defeated as part of a larger plot. So they just got lucky with that one, I think.
Ultimate Ultron. This version of Ultron is just plain terrifying in how he looks, but also in what he's done during his run. And just simply the fact that Ultimate Ultron, or Ultron 6, is a version of the villain that is starting to gather valuable information on how to take down the Avengers once and for all. So he does just that. Well, not once and for all, obviously, but he is the first Ultron to successfully take them down. The way he does it is by taking over Vision and turning his skeleton into adamantium.
This allows him to take on a nearly indestructible form and gain a huge advantage in battle. He's also unique in that he can actually shapeshift by manipulating his molecules, which is pretty impressive considering this is unheard of in the more modern iterations of this villain. But even though he's an older version of Ultron, he still strikes me as a little scarier than some of the others. The art just looks more menacing back then in some ways.
Number 7. Earth 21619. The Earth of 21619 takes the idea of Peter becoming a killer of villains even farther. In the Back in Black What If, Peter feels as though he is somewhat justified as Kingpin was the one who took Mary Jane from him. He was pushed to the breaking point by her death, basically. However, on the Earth of 21619, which is the reality number given to the universe that we see in the Chip Zdarsky and Phil Noto series, Spider-Man Spider Shadow, it is Spider-Man's union with Venom that brings out a darkness within him, and sets him on a path where he is killing multiple villains, taking a new approach to crime fighting as he falls deeper and deeper into the darkness that the symbiote unleashes from within. What happens with Peter also inevitably leads to another hero taking on and bonding with the symbiote later in the miniseries, and also having to face even more deadly consequences as a result of that bond. Number 6. Earth 70134. In this reality, things went down a little differently when it comes to the Spider-Man story known as The Other. Instead of embracing and accepting the spider totem within, Peter decides to reject it. Peter would rather not be resurrected than return more spider than man here. However, the spider totem wasn't the only one hoping to forge a special and permanent connection with Peter. Out in the world, Venom senses that Peter is in his cocoon and now vulnerable with the spider totem rejected and dead. The symbiote leaves its current host, Matt Gargan, in hopes of bonding with Peter, and guess what? It's successful. What is born from the union is a monster who calls himself Poison. No longer is Spider-Man alive. Instead, we have Poison in his place. Poison attempts to get Mary Jane to agree to be its partner and kind of its bride, but when she refuses the offer, they decide to dig up Gwen's corpse instead. Spooky stuff. Number 5. Dark Dimension. The Dark Dimension is on a whole other scale when it comes to dark, dangerous, and straight up scary alternate worlds. It is the home of the Dreadlord Dormammu, a notorious Doctor Strange villain. The other horrifying thing about this reality is that Dormammu, while residing there, becomes insanely powerful, as this is basically what fuels his own abilities, his magics, and his powers. So he is at his most powerful while in the Dark Dimension, which is also why he's probably the ruler of it, and probably also why you definitely don't want to go there if Dormammu is there. The Dark Dimension is filled with hellish landscapes, but also mind-melting, trippy ones as well. So it's not just a physical hellish reality, it's also a sort of mental and metaphysical one too. Number 4. Earth 14850. This is the reality belonging to the What If story Wolverine, Enemy of the State. In this version of the well-known Wolverine tale, Logan finds himself brainwashed by Weapon X, but as opposed to becoming free of their control, as happens in 616, he is unable to be saved. His friends and fellow heroes attempt to band together to stop Wolverine by neutralizing him and saving him instead of killing him. In the end, however, this just results in many of their own painful deaths. In the end, it is up to his good friend and student, Kitty Pryde, to save Wolverine, but of course by killing him, as that's really the only way left to deal with Wolverine at this point. In the process, Kitty loses her arm and is only able to save him by phasing her hand through his head and then making it solid while passing through Wolverine's brain. Number 3. Earth 811. Days of Future Past, all in all, is pretty hellish, and it's not even a hell dimension. In the reality of 811, we get to see what would happen if the Sentinels actually succeeded in conquering North America. Not only do they pretty much wipe out almost all mutants and superpowered beings, but the Sentinels also end up enslaving all of humanity for their own good, as they see it. The Sentinels decide who gets to breed and who doesn't, marking all citizens with lettered tattoos to denote if they are human, mutant, or basically are humans with like mutant potential. Mutants are kept in camps to serve the Sentinels, and even worse, the Sentinels seem to be planning to take over the entire world, which would inevitably start a nuclear war that would destroy the planet. Number 2. Hell. Technically, Hell is its own reality here in the Marvel Multiverse. It is often the name given to Mephisto's reality or realm, who is seen kinda like the Marvel Universe's devil. He claims to be their version of Satan, at least, although a few other powerful demons and entities have also attempted to claim that title as well, including Damon Hellstrom's father and Azazel, Nightcrawler's dad. Mephisto's realm is actually made up of various hellish realms and death dimensions. It typically is shown to look like a fiery, hot, or cavernous style landscape. What you typically think of when you think of the traditional stereotypical hell of Western Christianity. Number 1. What if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands? What if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands is the title of the 4th episode of Season 1 of Disney Plus's streaming animated series What If. Possibly one of the darkest episodes of all, allows us to see what would happen were Doctor Strange to have lost his love Christine instead of his hands. In this case, Doctor Strange chooses not to let go of the possibility that he might get Christine back, despite the fact that the Ancient One appears and tells him that Christine's death is actually part of an absolute point in time, which basically can't be altered without risking, well, the fate of the universe. Strange changes his own history, going down a dark path to try and find a way to get enough power to bring Christine back. Finally able to do so, just as the Ancient One warned, this does cause the destruction of the very universe that this Strange hails from.
Coming in at number 10 is The Amazing Spider. On Earth 11638, Uncle Ben never loses his life, and instead he helps train Peter Parker with his new spider powers and eventually even helps him to form Parker Industries. Now, given the title of this list, you should know that things aren't all hunky-dory. Peter and Uncle Ben end up building a machine that allows Peter to lure alternate versions of Spider-Man to his reality, where he then absorbs their powers to increase his own, making him the most powerful hero on Earth and eliminating the need for any other hero, but also taking the lives of other alternate hims. See, that did take a very dark turn. When he tried to do this to the Spider-Man from Earth 616, our Spider-Man, this powerful version of Peter loses his life and his soul is sent to hell, where, with the assistance of the Infernal Hulk, he is fused with the spirit of vengeance, becoming the Ghost Spider. Not the Gwen Stacy Ghost Spider, but a Ghost Rider Spider. A Ghost Rider Spider. That's what we're going with. Ghost Rider, for any who don't know, is insanely powerful. He has been called in to deal with the Hulk and has even gone toe-to-toe with Galactus, so this Spider-Man Ghost Rider hybrid is no joke at all. Plus he's kinda evil and he looks really cool. Number 9. Assassin Spider-Man. In What If Spider-Man vs. Wolverine number 1, we are introduced to Spider Assassin, a Spider-Man variant who is just a little bit more loose when it comes to the morals that he follows. In his universe, with great power comes great responsibility and greater enemies, which led the Peter of Earth 8351 to leave New York City in order to protect his family from the villains who would make personal strikes against him. Instead, Peter joined up with Wolverine, and because of their time traveling and working together, he is much less opposed to sending criminals to the afterlife, meaning he does it on the regulars. He is also almost always serious, not doing his normal quips and jokes that we are really used to from Peter, who usually uses it to cope with difficult or precarious situations. His serious nature is also reflected in his costume, with a much darker look, especially those black eyes, which are really cool. His web shooters have also been shown to shoot black webs in some panels, and they also include some more lethal means of dealing with his foes. He is an effective addition to the Spider-Man army though when it was formed, and an extremely effective Spider-Man just in general. Number 8. Marvel Universe vs. The Punisher. In this universe, the Punisher interrupts an arms deal involving what he thinks is a briefcase nuke, only to discover that it is in fact a man-made virus that, for Frank Castle, makes him immune to infection, illness, and disease. That's really good, but it didn't quite do this for everyone else. The problem here is that the chemical weapon found its way into the water supply and then into the food, and started in New York, spreading to the whole world through infected travelers. And then it started turning people and heroes into starting with Spider-Man. Spider-Man of Earth 11080 became infected with one of Marvel's deadliest viruses, which transformed him into a raging tribal. He viciously ate the Rhino on live TV and started an infection that eventually took over the entire world. In this new post-apocalypse, this terrifyingly evil Spider-Man became Patient Zero and took control of a portion of the former New York City, facing a rival tribe of other man-eaters led by the Kingpin, who took Spider-Man's mate, Mary Jane, prompting Patient Zero Spider-Man to hire the immune Frank Castle to rescue her. But then he met his sticky end, so...
In its 7th Age of Apocalypse, Earth 295 is a reality that was accidentally created by Legion, son of X-Men leader Professor Charles Xavier and Israeli diplomat Gabriel Haller. Legion believed that the only way to bring peace to humans and mutants was to kill Magneto before he could incite the anti-mutant movement. He traveled back to a time when Xavier and Magneto both lived in Israel and were working at a hospital, taking the X-Men Storm, Iceman, Bishop, and Psylocke back with him. Legion tried to stab Magneto with a Psyblade, but Xavier shielded Magneto and was killed instead. By killing his own own father, Legion then made his own existence impossible. The Macron Crystal resolved the paradox by restructuring reality. All the X-Men vanished from that reality, and a new reality came into existence. Bishop, already displaced in time, remained, but the chronal backlash fractured his mind. He wandered Earth for nearly 20 years, and then that superpowered fight attracted the attention of Apocalypse, who then basically took over and destroyed everything. In its 6th, Old Man Logan. 50 years later, Logan lives with his wife Maureen and his son Scotty and daughter Jade on a plot of land in Sacramento. What used to be California, but is now part of Hulkland. He requires money to pay his rent to the landlords of his territory, the descendants of Bruce Banner, the Hulk gang, who are a product of just a whole lot of crap, okay? Just give me a minute. He refuses to sell his children's toys to pay for the rent, understandably, and Logan is shown as a broken old man, refusing to fight anyone and trying to live peacefully. He realizes that he will be unable to pay the rent this month, and that the Hulk gang will not accept a plea to pay double next month on its own. Oh, by the way, the Hulk gang is a, inappropriately and unconsensually conceived group of children of the Hulk and She-Hulk, Bruce's cousin. Yeah. The Hulk gang arrives the next day to confront Logan on his lack of payment and then violently beat him, even though he was one of the most violent superheroes ever. Though Logan entertains visions of gutting the eldest Hulk brother Otis, he remains calm and just lets the beating happen. Later though, the Hulk gang kills his family, so Logan goes on to kill the whole Hulk gang. But it's still a messed up Earth, okay? It is. Halfway through into number 5, Earth X. The entire world has mutated due to the release of the Terrigen mists in the air. The now blind Watcher recruits Aaron Stack to be his eyes and inform him of what's going on Earth. X-51 finds that in this new world where everyone has superhuman abilities, a young man named the Skull is attempting to take over the world. And Captain America and a band of former champions of Earth have rallied together to stop him. But there's more going on here than meets the eye. It is learned that the Celestials have manipulated the people of Earth into being antibodies for a celestial embryo that is growing in the Earth's core. With humanity in a state of mutation that is not destined to happen for another 300 years, the Celestials come to cleanse the human race from the face of the Earth. Only the intervention of Reed Richards, Black Bolt, and Franklin Richards, who is now Galactus, stop the Celestials and destroys the thing growing at the center of the Earth. At the end of the battle, Galactus returns to space, and Reed has giant human torches built around the Earth to burn the Terrigen mists out of the air in an attempt to return humanity back to their former state.
At number 4 is X-24 from Logan. Shout out to Brilliant 30 Games 127. In the dark, twisted multiverse of comic book adaptations, we've seen our fair share of alternate versions of beloved characters, but none quite as spine-chilling as X-24. In the film Logan, this sinister creation was engineered to be the ultimate unaliving machine, a nightmarish image of Wolverine himself. Unlike the brooding and complex Logan we know, X-24 was a ruthless berserker devoid of any moral compass. He wasn't plagued by inner demons or a sense of duty, he was a pure force of destruction. What made him even more terrifying was his relentless pursuit of Laura, or X-23, who shared Wolverine's blood. Every time X-24 appeared on screen, a wave of anxiety washed over me, knowing that this unrelenting monster would stop at nothing to achieve its grisly objectives. It's a chilling reminder of how alternate versions can take familiar heroes and twist them into our darkest nightmares. At number 3 is Poison. Thank you to Chronos200 for this suggestion. In this alternate version of Spider-Man the Other, Spider-Man's transformation takes a nightmarish turn under the Brooklyn Bridge. You see, instead of embracing his spider powers, he violently rejects them, decapitating his inner spider and leaving his metamorphosis incomplete. As if sensing the chaos, the Venom symbiote abandons MacGarren to merge with Peter Parker. A mental battle rages on, with the symbiote ultimately obliterating what remains of Peter's psyche. Stark Tower now becomes a battleground as the symbiote-possessed Peter, now Poison, confronts Aunt May and Mary Jane. Poison's deluded belief in his creation as an act of love drives him to offer Mary Jane a horrifying choice: to bond with the new symbiote spawn. Wolverine and Luke Cage try to stop him, but Poison's power proves overwhelming. The chilling climax reveals the extent of madness as he revives Gwen Stacy with the symbiote, transforming her into a Carnage-like monstrosity. In this unnerving alternate reality, Spider-Man is unrecognizable and fear lurks just around every corner. At number 2, Norman Osborn's Dark Avengers. Shout out to Damon Blackfriar 3238 You guys gotta make some better usernames, holy cow. In the wake of the Skrull invasion, Osborn ascended to power, wielding authority over S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Thunderbolts, bending them to his will. Under his Hammer agency, Osborn recruited a macabre roster of quote-unquote heroes. Among them, Bullseye is masqueraded as Hawkeye, Venom as Spider-Man, and Moonstone as Miss Marvel. Ares and Sentry lingered, tainted by their association with Osborn. Miss Marvel wisely refused to join the team, aware of Osborn's malevolent past. But Osborn's recruit of baddies didn't stop there. Daken assumed the mantle of Wolverine, while Novar became Captain Marvel. Osborn himself donned the Iron Patriot suit, a twisted embodiment of patriotism. At number 1, Spider Assassin. Shout out to Lil Do9796 for bringing this one up. Spider Assassin is a version of our friendly neighborhood hero who's taken a dark turn. It all starts with a trip to Germany, a tragic loss, and a secret romance. You see, as Spider-Man teams up with Wolverine to take down Charlemagne, the stakes rise and morality blurs. The turning point in this reality comes when he chooses to save Charlemagne's sister, Alex, and spirals into a life of espionage and assassination. Now, what truly sets this Spider-Man apart is his enhanced spider sense. With training from Nebo, he transforms it into a weapon, foreseeing attacks before they're even conceived in the first place. It's an uncanny ability that makes him a formidable force, even modifying his web shooters to fire lethal bullets. Yet as he descends into darkness, this Spider-Man becomes an embodiment of moral ambiguity, losing his identity as the friendly neighborhood hero. And as such, he remains in Europe, accepting sinister assassination jobs, leaving us to ponder the full consequence of a spider sense weaponized to its full potential.
Coming in at number 10 today is Milkman Man. The DC Universe Wiki says that Milkman Man is an imperfect copy of Superman, but with all that calcium, I gotta assume he has the strongest bones that you and I have ever seen. In JLA/Doom Patrol Special, The Milk Wars, the Doom Patrol has discovered that an interdimensional corporation called Retco has been stealing stories, reconfiguring them, and repackaging them for new markets. Retco has embedded itself into the current continuity, using the radioactive milk of psychic cows to quell the more dangerous impulses of the Justice League and turn them into heroes that are safe for the masses. That is literally the quote from the official summary, I am not even joking. Milkman Man specifically has all the same powers as the famous Kryptonian superhero, only he's a milkman and central part of the Community League of Rhode Island. Now, this group is actually a very sinister collection of pleasant-spoken normal folks. I know this doesn't sound scary, necessarily, but it's just like unsettling, like Twilight Zone style. Please do yourself the favor of reading this story and trying to figure out what the heck is going on, because it took me like a hot minute. Number 9, Red Sun Superman. Instead of landing in America, Red Sun Superman landed in the Soviet Union, and that allowed the Soviets to weaponize him instead of allowing him to live the quote normal life he traditionally has in the US. He received severe training that not even the original Superman underwent, as Red Sun Superman was always meant to be a weapon. This allowed him to become quite strong as he paired his severe training with his new communist sense of duty. If the training he underwent wasn't enough to prove this power though, Superman advanced the Soviet Union to almost worldwide control without resorting to war, and he virtually eliminated poverty and disease. While this sounds pretty great, it was supported by some pretty awful tactics behind closed doors by Superman himself, but also those who worked under him. This powerful version of Superman is a much more skilled Superman, if not slightly more ruthless, as that's what he was raised to be. But it was his ability to eventually realize the fault in his own actions and allow the world to become a utopia that kind of puts him a cut above everyone else, which is why he is at number 9 today. But he did turn people into mindless cyborg zombies, so he's a little terrifying. Number 8, Earth 17 Superman. On Earth 17, superheroes are a product of government experiments. The Superman of this universe, who was called Overman, was the first hero, with the other heroes being spawns of his DNA. Now this may be weird, but that ain't the weird part. He also doesn't seem horrifying at all yet, does he? Well, after contracting a certain kind of physically transmitted disease from another person, like that kind of disease, if you know what I'm saying, he ends up going insane and destroys the Justice League and reduces his entire world to rubble. He then gets his filthy paws on a doomsday device that he intends to use on Earth 17 to completely wipe it out. The Crisis on Infinite Earths destroyed this reality, just like DC tried to destroy such a naughty Superman story, even having different iterations of Overman, who we will be talking about in just a moment. But the internet never forgets DC Comics, and people like me exist to remind everyone of the things you published into this world, like naughty Superman contracting naughty diseases and reducing the world to ash. Ick. Number 7, Spider from Earth 15. There are a lot of characters who go by the name of the Spider, including a pulp hero from way back in the day, but specifically today we are talking about a Peter Parker variant that's bonded with the Carnage symbiote coming from Earth 15. The Spider of Earth 15 is a much more sadistic, sociopathic, red-headed version of Peter Parker, and that's the scary part. He's a ginger. He even claims that he has been sentenced to a total of 67 life sentences in prison for the crimes that he has committed, but of course, to make him just a bit more lovable, he has a sense of humor very much like that of Deadpool. It's great, if not a little unnerving. The Spider was introduced in Exiles number 12 and was a big part of the reality-saving Weapon X team featured in that story, being a sometimes leader of the team. As a Carnage-bonded sociopath, he was pretty powerful, but he nonetheless was sent to the afterlife by a blast from Firestar in Exiles number 44. When you're dealing with the multiverse, there is bound to be someone stronger than you, no matter what you do and who you are, even if you're a scary Spider-Man. Number 6, Zombie Spider-Man. Yes, Zombie Spider-Man is essentially the same Spider-Man everyone is used to, all the same powers at least, except after being bit by a zombie, he now also has a ravenous hunger that cannot be sated no matter what, combined with the fact that he is essentially undead and can take a whole whack more punishment. Both of those factors led him and a group of other heroes, who were zombified, to consume the Silver Surfer and Galactus, which gave them all the Power Cosmic. With the Power Cosmic, the zombie Galacti, which is what they called themselves, have the ability to absorb and tap ambient cosmic energy into their bodies at will and expel those energies, like channeling beams of energy through their hands and teleporting through time and space, devouring entire planets. With this power, they have the potential to phase through objects, accelerate the evolution of life forms, see the past by peeling back the layers of time, time travel, and manipulate, absorb, and discharge any form of energy or radiation. But they mainly use it to get to the next snack. Though Spider-Zombie loses all this power eventually, he still had it and was an incredibly powerful version of Spider-Man, and also a really scary one because he would eat your face. Number 5, Dark Ages. Dark Ages is, in my opinion, a pretty underrated story. Essentially, a superpowered machine known as the Unmaker was causing massive devastation in the core of the planet, and in an attempt to stop the threat, a portal created by Doctor Strange released an EMP that completely crippled the world's technology. The story essentially sees the world rebuilding itself without the use of any advanced technology, while also dealing with the many threats of the world, including werewolves, vampires, and supervillains, specifically the mutant apocalypse. Now, Miles Morales was one of the survivors of this new society, although here, Miles became bonded to the Venom symbiote, which he used to try and help people during the first early years. They worked really well together until the Carnage symbiote also forcibly bonded itself to Miles as well. Now, this isn't like Carnage kicked out Venom or anything like that. It's Carnage corrupting Venom, and the two symbiotes together both agreed to take over Miles' body. And they even went to work for Apocalypse in exchange for a ship to escape the Earth. All the while, Miles remained unconscious, being used as an unwilling host. It sounds horrifying because it is. That's scary.
Number 4, the Bruce. This alternate version of Batman comes to us from the reality belonging to Batman I Joker. Here, Batman is a tyrant and a symbol who is worshipped as a god. This is not our own Bruce Wayne, by the way, but like a dystopian, almost cyberpunk future version of the character where the people of Gotham see him as their ruler and god. In fact, I don't even know if this guy's name is actually Bruce Wayne or is Bruce at all. I think he's just a person that's elected and like that's the role you play, or that seized power. The people of Gotham worship him and his mission for vengeance. The whole comic is pretty horrifying to read and reveals how even the best of heroic intentions can be perverted over time. Nothing scarier than just humanity and the way that we think things through and can like take a good idea and make it into something a lot more sinister. That's the scariest thing of them all. Well, almost. There's a few more points. Number 3, Murder Machine. Murder Machine is an alternate version of Bruce Wayne who hails from the dark multiverse reality of Earth -44. Here Bruce Wayne turns to his friend and colleague Cyborg for help, building an AI to supplement Alfred after Bruce's longtime friend, butler, and father figure is tragically murdered. However, this AI is programmed to protect Bruce at all costs, which ends up leading the Alfred Protocol, as it's named here, to take over Bruce, replacing his human body with a mechanical, indestructible, and immortal one. Turning Bruce into the murder machine, the Alfred Protocol, which Bruce is now fully merged with, also takes away Bruce's ability to feel fear or sadness. I think you know where this is going. It's not going to a good place. In the end, it labels everyone a threat to Bruce and helps him to kill all those who could potentially harm him, including the entire Justice League. Pretty bleak stuff. Number 2, Nemesis. Nemesis is probably one of the most brutal Batman alternates we've ever encountered. Probably also because he doesn't even hail from DC Comics himself, but instead is a creation of Mark Millar's, who hails from Icon Comics. Mark Millar doesn't hail from Icon Comics, but this character does. Mark Millar does many things. Well, we do have an elaborate backstory for Nemesis, which involves him also seeking vengeance for the death of his parents, but in a much more twisted way. Since his parents were actually the worst kind of wealthy folks and murderers themselves, it's never really even confirmed that this backstory is the true backstory of Nemesis. In fact, it's even implied in the story that Nemesis could actually be multiple people who just cause mayhem and death and destruction because, well, maybe they just enjoy it? The whole idea of the character and everything that he does is pretty messed up and is quite dark. Nemesis provides a much more villainous take on the idea of vigilantes and how motivation can mess you up, or alternatively, how you really don't even need motivation to become a messed up and brutal vigilante in the first place. Also power. Lots of things about power, because that's how it goes. Number 1, Batman Who Laughs. Obviously one of the darkest and scariest alternate versions of Batman out there has to be the Batman Who Laughs. This version of Batman is actually like an amalgamation of Joker and Batman, but he is ultimately an alternate of Bruce Wayne, because he is Bruce Wayne, so a little more Bruce really than Joker in the end. He used to fight crime as Batman, but one day Joker took things too far and caused Batman to snap. And not just snap internally, but externally as well, when he actually snapped Joker's neck, killing him. Joker released a special brand of Joker venom with his last breath, which Bruce breathed in. Over time, this venom made him paranoid and homicidal, and ultimately, he became the villain of the story, going so far as to kill all the members of the Bat family. Knowing they would not be able to join him, or not be willing to join him, I guess I should say, well, he killed all of them at least except one. His son Damian Wayne was offered a spot at his father's side, and he ended up taking it. Batman then became the insane Batman Who Laughs and set out to conquer and reshape the entire multiverse. Which definitely means you're pretty scary. If you are like, I'm not just gonna take over this world, I'm gonna like go beyond that, that's a lot.
At number 10 is X-24. In the dark and twisted multiverse of comic book adaptations, we've seen our fair share of alternate versions of our beloved characters, but in the film Logan, this sinister creation was engineered to be the ultimate unaliving machine, a nightmarish mirror image of Wolverine himself. Unlike the brooding and complex Logan we know, X-24 is a ruthless berserker devoid of any moral compass. See, he wasn't played by inner demons or a sense of duty, he was a pure force of destruction, and what made him even more terrifying was his relentless pursuit of Laura, or X-23, who shared Wolverine's blood. Every time X-24 appeared on screen, a wave of anxiety washed over myself, knowing that this unrelenting monster would stop at nothing to achieve its grisly objectives. If you're enjoying this video so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. I would really appreciate it. At number 9 is Zombieverse Wolverine. In the eerie expanse of the multiverse, we stumble upon a spine-chilling variant of Wolverine, who's a zombie. Venture into Earth Z, or Earth 2149, a nightmarish realm in which this gruesome iteration, Wolverine's fate, takes a sinister twist as he, along with a select other few heroes, feast upon the remains of the cosmic entity Galactus. But it doesn't stop there. The unholy banquet bestows upon zombie Wolverine the dreaded power Cosmic. Damn, picture it. The relentless savagery of Wolverine as a zombie, fueled with the limitless might of the cosmos. It's a ghastly unison that transforms Logan into a nightmarish force, a walking apocalypse with claws and a cosmic energy at his disposal. This incarnation of Wolverine sends shivers down the spine, reminding us that within the multiverse, terror knows no bounds. At number 8 is the Lord of the Vampires. This spine-chilling incarnation of Logan emerged from the pages of the What If series, specifically in Volume 2, Issue 24. Here, a fateful turn of events sees Storm choosing to stay by Dracula's side during the X-Men's clash with the infamous Vampire Lord. The consequences were world-altering, as Wolverine and his fellow heroes fell victim to capture and transformation. Yet the adamantium-laced warrior's indomitable will proved way too powerful for Dracula's control. In a gruesome twist, Wolverine overcame the Vampire Lord, seizing the throne and becoming the new Lord of the Vampires. Picture Wolverine with fangs, ruling over legions of bloodsuckers, and capable of enslaving anyone with a single bite. It's a nightmarish blend of clawed ferocity and a moral bloodlust that would haunt even the most fearless of souls.
Number 7, Eradicator Lois. For this point, we are going back in time to the infamous death of Superman's story. When Superman fell in the fight between himself and Doomsday, it didn't hit anyone as hard as it hit Lois Lane. Well, in the dark multiverse, something curious happened. After some time passed and Lois saw the effects of a Superman-less world, she eventually traveled to the Fortress of Solitude to return Superman's cape. What she never expected was for the Kryptonian Eradicator to show up. This defender of Krypton is the reason that Superman does eventually come back to life in the real world, placing Clark in the Kryptonian life matrix that was supposed to revive Superman. In this story though, it takes longer than expected, and so, assuming that the revival was a failure, the Eradicator instead places the powers of Superman into the body of Lois Lane. Unfortunately, this is the dark multiverse though, and so this newly superpowered Lois Lane throws almost all caution to the wayside and uses her powers recklessly, saving the day, sure, but with no regard for collateral damage or repercussions. She ends wars, feeds the hungry, destroys the military-industrial complex, all that good stuff, but she also wipes out countless lives, including Batman's, Lex Luthor's, and she's even responsible for the fall of Superman when he does finally return. The whole story is super tragic, but that also makes it one of the best to come out of the dark multiverse, in my opinion. Number 6, Overman. I told you we would talk about another Overman. This version of our favorite red and blue boy didn't end up in Kansas when he was ejected from Krypton. No, this Kal-El found himself in Sudetenland, Germany in 1938, and he was acquired by a certain mustached fascist. With Kal and Kryptonian tech, the Reich were obviously able to win World War II and rule over the entire planet. Later, Overman would become disgusted with the stashed man when his annihilation of those he deemed lesser had been finalized. Although Superman still served that man's political party, weird set of morals there, I don't know. Eventually though, he was cloned and received a romantic partner in the form of Overgirl. But after her passing, he was completely heartbroken and he supplied information to the freedom fighters who long opposed the fascists, which eventually led to the end of the new Reichman, this world's evil Justice League, and the city of Metropolis. With the grief of all those losses holding him down, he was overthrown by his own best friend. But I wouldn't feel too bad for him though, he was pretty bad. Number 5, Ultraman. Who would have thought that a Superman who is just a giant man baby would be one of the more powerful versions of the character? Ultraman is the Superman of Earth 3, where strength and power are held above everything else, even good and righteousness. Ultraman was born on the dying Krypton to Jor-Il, who was able to secure a life pod for his incredibly powerful son, who he saw as his best chance of revenge. While in his life pod, Kal-El was given the ideology of becoming the strongest possible being, eschewing all weakness in himself and in others. His rocket crash landed in Smallville, right through the home of the dysfunctional couple, Johnny and Martha Kent, who he forced to be his parents until he was 7 years old, when he then took their lives and burned their home to the ground. He took the name Ultraman, took over the Earth, and created the crime syndicate of America. Unlike Superman, Ultraman actually gets more powerful from kryptonite, and the sun is what makes him weaker, which is fine because he will literally just move the moon to block out the sun. Number 4, Brutal. Brutal is a cloned version of Superman, but unlike a certain bizarre version of Superman, this duplication was done by none other than Darkseid himself. Darkseid raised the resulting clone into a weapon and unleashed him on the superheroes of Earth 2, along with Steppenwolf and the other Hunger Dogs. Now, when Steppenwolf tried to subvert his master Darkseid and take Earth as his own, Brutal ruthlessly, or some might say brutally, takes Steppenwolf from this plane of existence with his heat vision, establishing his devotion to his Lord Darkseid, being all like, "Let me make my intentions clear, hail Darkseid," which is just a sweet line after you take down a general of Darkseid. Now the Earth became lost to Darkseid's minions, and eventually, after a lot of other stuff, Kal-Zod, Earth 2's really awesome Superman, faced Brutal in combat, and after a furious battle, showed that Brutal was just an imitation, and a cheap one at that, as his body began to deteriorate, all Spider-Man clone degradation style, and the day was finally saved. Number 3, Injustice Superman. The Superman of the Injustice universe has pretty much the same history as the baseline Superman, but when the Joker kidnaps the pregnant Lois Lane, it lures Superman into a trap of fear gas. In this fear-induced state, Superman hallucinates his wife as the villain Doomsday and instantly attacks, flying Lois and what would have been John Kent into space, taking their lives, and also inadvertently causing a nuclear detonation to destroy his city, Metropolis. After suddenly losing his city, wife, and his baby, Superman goes into a pretty honestly understandable rage, bursting into the interrogation room where Batman is learning the true intentions of the Joker, and he plunges his super fist straight through the clown's chest. Following these events, Superman takes control of the Earth and rules it as a tyrant. He turns on and destroys his friends, is manipulated by Wonder Woman, holds nothing back, and puts the entire Earth under the control of his regime. He is a seriously hardcore version of Superman who has actually been revisited recently in John Kent's comic book story, where he even took the life of Earth 3's Ultraman pretty easily. It was kinda nuts. Number 2, Super Doom. On Earth 45, Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen, and Clark Kent are scientists instead of reporters, and they use their smarts to build a machine that can turn thoughts into reality, which, I gotta be honest, how the heck did they think that was a good idea? I can think of 10 things right now off the top of my head that should never become reality. Anyways, using the aforementioned thought to form machine, they tried to create a being called Superman, who would be capable of doing amazing things and who could save worlds. But when they are forced to give their idea over to Overcorp, these guys decide to rebrand and end up creating a monstrosity, Superman, the Last Knight of Tomorrow, or as he's better known to everyone else, Super Doom. With a corporate-fueled agenda of destroying all competition, Super Doom quickly becomes the strongest super being on its own planet, and then entered into the bleed space to take out all the other versions of Superman across the multiverse. Of course, bad guys never win forever, so after defeating and devouring multiple different Supermen of multiple different Earths, he was stopped by the Superman and Lex Luthor of Earth 22, who stranded him between universes. He's since been used in a few other storylines and remains one of the most formidable evil versions of Superman to this day because he didn't actually pass away. He's still out there, just like between universes. Crazy. And finally, in at number 1 today, it's Bump in the Night. For starters, DC's House of Horror is basically a collection of short stories featuring different characters. They are all equally interesting and horror themed. The Possession of Billy Batson and the Last Laugh stories are particularly interesting, but for today's video, I think we want to talk about the very first one, Bump in the Night. This short story follows Martha Kent on the night Kal-El arrives on Earth. Jonathan Kent has gone out to explore what exactly caused a big bang and trail of smoke on the Kent's farm, but he doesn't come back. As Martha worries about where her husband has gone to, she goes back inside, but Martha starts hearing bumping and thumping coming from upstairs in the house. All of a sudden, a demonic humanoid child crashes through the ceiling and begins attacking her. She tries to run to the barn, but fiery beams of energy fire fire from the creature, blowing up the barn. She takes refuge in her truck only for the creature to land on the hood, shrieking. It throws the truck across the yard and Martha gets out wounded only for the truck to explode. The tiny little creature then flies away with the symbol of an S emblazoned on its own chest.
Number 10, Earth 64211. This reality is quite dark and quite scary, especially for Black Bolt. Here, Maximus, Black Bolt's brother, devised a plan to steal the throne of Attilan and of the Inhumans by disguising himself as his brother. When this plan appeared to be destined to fail due to memory detectors installed around the palace in preparation, he made the Inhuman Telegar make it so that he not only looked identical to Black Bolt, but also had his distinct superpowered vocal cords and his memories as well, erasing Maximus's. Still, Maximus was not trained to hold back his voice, and the pain of the procedure caused him to cry out, exposing his treachery and causing him to be banished from Attilan to Taros. However, Maximus gave himself Black Bolt's memories, and therefore he didn't actually remember his role in this plot, leaving him to ponder upon this revelation if he was indeed Maximus turned into Black Bolt, or simply Black Bolt and Maximus had actually succeeded in usurping him. He couldn't remember who he was anymore. Number 9. That time Thanos helped an old lady cross the street. This alternate reality seems to be unnumbered, but exists based off the story that Cosmic Ghost Rider tells us in the Thanos 2016 annual. Connor diving into Thanos Wins on the part 1 of this list made me remember how much I love that comic, but especially the annual, which features multiple stories which are all, or at least appear to be, set in alternate worlds. In one such story, Thanos helps a little old lady cross the street, seemingly at first out of the kindness of his heart. I know, shocking, right? Well, of course it turns out that even this act is quite sinister, and that Thanos really did it only to delay a bus from stopping, thereby preventing Stephanie Kircher from bumping into and meeting Suzanne. This meeting would set Stephanie on a path which would turn her into Earth's savior, allowing her to end world hunger, cure disease, and dismantle inequality. Thanos even visits Stephanie on her deathbed to give her a vision of what could have been of the life she missed out on because he delayed her bus, stopping by a few moments, preventing her from bumping into Suzanne. Pretty evil stuff, right? And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to learn about even more scary alternate Earths from Marvel, there are tons of those, so be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, Earth 51412. One of the freakiest realities that I could think of visiting would be the one that belongs to Patton Parnell. Patton Parnell is probably one of the most disturbing Spider-Man alternates around, who literally turned into a sadistic man-spider-like monster when he got his powers. Well, he was actually probably always sadistic and sociopathic to some extent, but getting spider-like powers, which also turned him into a humanoid spider-like creature, probably didn't help the guy. Number 7, Humanoid Ultron. At least humanoid in terms of his facial expressions and like his appearance. This Ultron is not actually one that exists in the comics or in the MCU, but is a hypothetical design that was made during the process of developing Ultron's look for the MCU film Age of Ultron. The creepy, very human-like appearance of this face and the expressions is what really messes with me looking at this. I personally think this would have been a much more disturbing design for Ultron on the screen, making him appear even more humanoid than he already did. But then again, they probably didn't do that for the reason of, you know, like not spooking kids too much that were watching the movie. Of course, then again, we also just got Multiverse of Madness, which definitely did not hold too much back when it came to disturbing scenes and characters. So yeah, I guess it's a while later, so it's a different time. All the people that saw Age of Ultron are older now, so they can handle it. I don't know. These designs for Ultron, by the way, come from Phil Saunders, who is a concept artist for Age of Ultron, and also has been one for many other MCU films and projects, including WandaVision.
At number 6, I've put Hank Pym Ultron. In the comics, Ultron is created by none other than entomologist, biochemist, roboticist, engineer, physicist, and scientific adventurer Dr. Henry Hank Pym. But despite all his impressive titles and accomplishments, this scientist has some pretty questionable morals and a pretty messed up past to deal with. And as it works in the real world too, Ultron somehow inherits some of these issues, himself being something of a son to Pym. One of these issues is only characterized as a pretty deeply rooted father complex, where he constantly seems to be searching for Dr. Pym's approval. So instead of trying to please him, which seemed impossible, he just fuses with his creator instead, and in doing so, This super genius scientist gets a huge boost of intellect and, of course, power. And further, he is then able to turn back and forth to and from Dr. Pym's human form to avoid detection in crucial situations, and use his Ant-Man powers to get really small. So this version of Ultron just had so much dynamic in his abilities, which makes him all that much scarier knowing how evil he is. Something about his ability to blend in as a human is the scariest part of the whole thing, because sometimes you wouldn't even know you're speaking to one of the most devious, intelligent, and powerful beings in the universe.
Number 5, Ultron Galactus. Well, this sounds like it should be one of the scariest points on this list. The bottom line is that Ultron Galactus is actually kind of a hero in this story. In a distant future, Galactus is dead and an even greater villain threatens the universe known as the Unnameable. The Unnameable devours worlds without even a second thought, not bothering to even send words to planets of their arrival. If not stopped, it seems as though the entire universe will be destroyed. Hoping to save the universe, Silver Surfer recruits the Shi'ar and gathers the remains of his former master Galactus, along with some old parts of the villain once known as Ultron, planning on resurrecting Galactus so that the two can defeat the Unnameable together and kind of using parts of Ultron to do so. Unfortunately, even with the fused Ultron Galactus, who is under Silver Surfer's control, it's not enough power. They are forced to recruit other cosmic characters, but even then, victory seems uncertain. This story comes to us from a page of Marvel Universe 2001 Millennial Visions. I love these little short story anthologies. So much fun.
Ultron Phalanx. This version of Ultron comes from the Annihilation Conquest storyline, and he's got himself a full-on army, which gives him a spot on this list without a doubt. After the Avengers think they've finally taken out Ultron, it becomes very clear very soon that he isn't actually dead. Instead, his consciousness travels to another place in the universe called the Babel Spire. In this world, he somehow manages to take over all of its inhabitants, known as the Phalanx. These techno-organic aliens come together under Ultron's reign and form a pretty powerful army. With said army, Ultron invades the Kree Dominion and takes over a bunch of their territory, among other tyrannous acts. It's obviously a teachable lesson to the Avengers that no matter how sure you are that you've killed Ultron, you have to monitor him and his consciousness and keep tabs on his activities, because this villain's ambitions just never seem to cease, for anyone or anything.
Number 3, Allfather Ultron. Ultron just loves a good fusion dance, my friends, especially if it results in horrifying consequences, and in this case, it does. Here, Ultron ends up merged with Odin, taking the Odin Force instead of choosing to merge with Thor. So this is a being who is not only super smart and technologically gifted, but now is also magically gifted as well. Oh boy, that's great. Allfather Ultron hails from the Avengers Ultron Forever story, where in the future Ultimate Ultron appears and ends up defeating the Avengers and then enslaving all of humanity with his own drone army. He then goes on to imprison all of the Asgardians as well with the help of mischief god Loki, and chooses to take the power of Odin for himself, bonding with the Odin Force and therefore becoming, well, the Allfather.
At number 2 is MCU Ultron. This version of Ultron is the most popular, but that doesn't make him any less terrifying than these other versions of himself. In this storyline, Ultron is created by Iron Man, and one of the creepiest things that happens as a result is that Ultron takes on a personality similar to Stark's. But what's even scarier about this one is that he was actually created by Tony Stark to bring peace to the world. And what causes him to go rogue and try and instead do the opposite is that his coding malfunctions and convinces him that humanity is the only thing in his way from reaching this goal. And since the Avengers were in between him and his goal of killing all living things, they too are in his way. Somehow he's able to then create a robot army in a Hydra lab and challenges the Avengers as one of the toughest villains they've ever had to face. I know we're all very familiar with the MCU Ultron, but something about the fact that his coding starts as a directive to save the planet and then shifts into a directive to destroy the planet and the universe just gives me chills, especially since it's due to the notion that we are just so bad that we're the problem. Really makes you think.
Number 1, Infinity Ultron. Possibly one of the scariest iterations of Ultron I've ever seen, comes to us from the cinematic universe, appearing in Marvel's What If, the Disney Plus streaming service animated show. In the episode What If Ultron Won, we learned what would happen if Ultron was not defeated and instead became even more powerful, resulting in the antagonist being a threat to not just his own universe, where most heroes have already been defeated, but the entire multiverse. This version of Ultron not only has the Infinity Stones, but also discovers how to traverse the multiverse, allowing him to threaten the destruction of other worlds. Fortunately, he is, at least temporarily, I don't know if he's gonna stay defeated by the Guardians of the Multiverse, the Watcher's own multiversal team of heroes. But even then, that's a pretty rough fight that happens. Number 10, Earth 90213. There are tons of scary alternate universes for Peter, which isn't surprising given all the trauma he's already been through in the main continuity of Earth 616, and how frequently it seems things could have gone even more wrong or sideways in his life. In the reality of Earth 90213 from the comic What If Spider-Man Back in Black, we get to see just how much worse things could have gotten for Peter if Aunt May wasn't accidentally targeted by Kingpin's hitmen, but instead Mary Jane stepped into their crosshairs. However, unlike May, MJ doesn't end up in critical care, she just straight up dies. This sets Peter down a path of darkness, where instead of just badly beating and terrifying Kingpin while May's life is on the line, Spider-Man is actually focused on killing him. Aunt May tries to beg Peter to think about what Mary Jane would have wanted and not to pursue the man responsible, but he is blinded by rage. In the end, he succeeds in killing Kingpin and is arrested by Iron Man and the authorities and taken to prison. For his part, Peter blames the whole thing on Iron Man, who in this reality he's still unmasked for, in order to show solidarity for Iron Man's Superhero Registration Act. Number 9, My Little Thanos. This feels like a weird one to have on this list, but I think it is both terrifying and adorable, which is a unique combination of descriptors for a story, so I thought I would share it with you. Also, I just really like it. My Little Thanos is another tale, likely from an alternate timeline, featured in the Thanos Annual from 2018. Back on part 1, Connor talked about the Thanos wins reality from the second arc of the main story of that comic, and on my part 2, I talked about another alternate timeline story from this annual. The annual is a really fun read and a good standalone collection of just short Thanos tales outside of continuity, so whether or not you pick up the main series, I would really recommend reading this issue at least. Just read the annual, even if you don't want to read the whole series. It's great, it's fantastic. In My Little Thanos, Thanos visits an adorable world of cute little beings known as the Adorals. Noticing how bright their world shines, he attempts to get whatever source of power they have that causes such an effect. You know Thanos, he's all about power. The Adorals in general are just enthusiastic about everything, including being subjugated by their new god Thanos. They happily murder themselves and one another at his behest, and get him the artifact that they worship. It turns out it's just a heart that makes a squeaky sound when you squeeze it. It's a very disturbing but delightful world. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want to learn about even more scary alternate Marvel universes, I'm pretty sure we could just keep going forever. There's a lot of them. So be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, Limbo. Limbo is the dimension and reality where Magic, aka Ilyana Rasputin, was held as a prisoner when she was young. She was kidnapped by the evil Belasco, who sought to use her to harness her power and also to turn her into a sort of protege for his own dastardly means. In the end, Magic ended up escaping her captor and even rising up against him and taking Limbo for herself, defeating Belasco. While Magic has her own dark side, known as Darkchild, it is because of her alignment as a hero that I am ranking Limbo a little lower than I might otherwise. Magic, you see, tends to rule over Limbo, and you know, she's pretty inherently good overall. Still, Limbo is basically a hell dimension on its own, so it's still a pretty scary alternate reality to visit. Unless you have Magic with you and on your side. And even then, I imagine it would still be like a little bit scary, a little bit traumatizing, at least. Just cause like demons and such.
At number 7 is Cancerverse Wolverine. Cancerverse Wolverine is a denizen of Earth 10011, remains a shadowy figure in the Marvel Universe. In this eerie reality known as the Cancerverse, the Grim Reaper has been utterly obliterated, and in the absence of the unalive, paradoxically, it gave birth to a cosmic nightmare. Cancerverse Wolverine's appearance alone is enough to send shivers down your spine. In a world where mortality is non-existent, life spirals into a grotesque spectacle, a chilling reflection of the importance of balance in the universe. Because in this twisted realm, even a hero like Wolverine becomes a harbinger of terror, a reminder that the natural order of things, no matter how unsettling, always has its rightful place. At number 6 is Old Man Logan. Old Man Logan is a haunting iteration of Wolverine, emerging from Earth 8071-28. In this chilling reality, the claws of tragedy run deep. See, Logan was once a hero who now carries the crushing weight of guilt upon his adamantium-laced shoulders. Mysterio's sinister dissipation led him down a path of unwitting euthanization, annihilating his fellow X-Men. Time catapults us into a future where Logan has abandoned his iconic alias, opting simply for his first name to escape the specter of his past. But destiny refuses to release his grip. Logan attempts to evade heroics, settling into a family life, yet peril relentlessly pursues him. When the ruthless Hulk gang eliminates his loved ones over the late protection money, Logan's dormant savagery ignites. The descent into vengeance becomes an inescapable plunge, culminating in a gory reckoning that liberates his world from the clutches of the deranged Pappy Banner and his nightmarish clan. In the desolate landscape of Old Man Logan's reality, even heroes succumb to darkness, making it one of the most spine-tingling alternate Wolverines in the multiverse. And at number 5, my personal favorite is Old Man Venom. Enter the Venomverse, where unimaginable transformations await. In this universe, we get to see Old Man Logan devoured by a venom-infested T-Rex. But here's the twist. The symbiote decides that Logan is a superior host and merges with him. The result is Venom Wolverine, or as I like to call him, Old Man Venom, a character oozing with insanity, ethics thrown out the window, and an utter disregard for consequences. Sure, he might have a laundry list of symbiote vulnerabilities, making him marginally less formidable than your typical regenerating Logan, but the sheer terror he instills is undeniable. Venom Wolverine is a monstrous fusion of two iconic characters, delving into a spine-tingling combination of ferocity and chaos. Next time you delve into alternate realities, keep an eye out for this hair-raising incarnation of Wolverine.
And at 4, Spider Carnage. Spider Carnage is my favorite alternate version of Spider-Man. Also being introduced in the Spider-Man animated series in the 1990s like the Man Spider from last number, this version of Peter Parker shared most of his early life with his superhero counterpart. However, the difference between these two was that Aunt May at some point died as well, being buried next to Uncle Ben. Thanks to some messing around with interdimensional portals by Jonathan Ohm, a version of a Carnage symbiote from another universe sensed this Peter's anger and latched onto him, turning him into the Spider Carnage, a version of Spider-Man with the Carnage symbiote, if you couldn't tell. A villain set on revenge and the destruction of all realities. Spider Carnage is one of the coolest iterations of Spider-Man to date in my opinion, and it's part of the reason I love the 90s cartoon so much. I watch it all the way through just so I can see Spider Carnage at the end. And while there is a version from the comics just called the Spider, which is Spider-Man with the Carnage symbiote, this version wanted to destroy literally everything, so yes please, this is certainly the scarier of the two, just saying. Sorry comic lovers, okay? Look, I like the comics too, but Spider Carnage is definitely worse than the Spider. Getting close to the end at number 3, Patient Zero Spider-Man. After the Punisher accidentally released Survivor 118, a chemical designed to help people adapt to a post-apocalyptic environment, Spider-Man was the first to show symptoms from it after he ate the rhino during a hockey game. The Fantastic Four subdued him shortly afterwards and put him in a cage for experimentation, but Ben Grimm also succumbed to the plague himself and freed Spider-Man from captivity, though the exact reason why he did that is unknown. As he escapes into the city, he briefly fought Wolverine and the Punisher, but soon the world would start to fall apart, and heroes and villains alike would become cannibals, eventually leaving the Punisher as the only hero left to fight them. A turf war erupted among the emerging tribes of cannibals, due in part to the King of Death's manipulations in an attempt to thin the herd, but Spider-Man, now referred to as Patient Zero, was the most successful, and took control of all of Manhattan for his own tribe, while the others left to stake new lands. They had to conquer other places. Especially given the recent world issues though, I think that this is certainly something that I can say a good majority of people are afraid of. Although I bet that there are some survivors on this earth that say Survivor 118, that the Survivor 118 plague is fake. Calling it. Penultimately, in at number 2, Wolf Spider. At an unknown time in this universe, Wolf Spider gained spider-like powers, but unlike most other realities Peter Parker, he became a villain, remorselessly killing this universe's Miles Morales and everyone who stood for heroism and responsibility. Because, you know, we're bad guys, it's what we do. First appearing in the Ultimate Spider-Man cartoon in Season 4, Episode 16, this guy isn't even the villain of just one world. After finding a shard of the Siege Perilous, he traveled through dimensions to find the rest. One of these dimensions was Blood Spider, Spider's homeworld, where he allied himself with the Lizard King. After turning almost everyone into vampires, which is weird because, I mean, it was called the Lizard King. Well, wouldn't you want to turn them into lizards, but whatever. He and the Lizard King hatched a plan to block out the sun so that vampires could just roam free on the earth. And this sounds very Dawnguard Volkihar clan to me. Okay, Peter? Like, what you gonna tell me that you need to find Oriel's bow next? And like a daughter of Cold Harbor? I don't know. Skyrim. Wolf Spider, though, was cold and ruthless and obsessed with gathering the shards of Siege Perilous, and seemed to have a grudge against Spider-Man and every Miles Morales. An evil Peter Parker is always a scary thing. And finally, in at number 1, Spider's Man. Peter Parker of Earth 11580 was once a promising young student, invited by Max Modal alongside his best friend Gwen Stacy to tour his Bleeding Edge company at Horizon Labs. One of the experiments the pair observed was a massive colony of spiders that Modell was bombarding with numerous radioactive particles in the name of genetic alteration. Parker, of course, fell into this colony where he seemed to be devoured, but in the process, the spiders became a singular hive mind construct that absorbed Peter's consciousness. So they started masquerading as the man they absorbed. The Hive, calling themselves Spider's Man, put on the Spider-Man costume and began to fight crime in cruel York. First appearing in Spider-Geddon number 3, I absolutely hate the idea of a whole human being made of spiders, because that's just up. In at 10, Ultimate. The Ultimate Universe is very similar to the normal 616 counterpart. However, there are some differences that certainly make this thing scarier than the main continuity. Captain America is anti-French for some reason. Ultimate Mr. Fantastic is a villain called the Maker. Ultimate Thanos is gold instead of purple. Oh yeah, and Ultimate Magneto is way too dark compared to Prime Magneto. Prime Magneto hates humans, but Ultimate Magneto is like a tyrant in that he considers all humans insects. Ultimate Wolverine is shown to be interested in teenage girls, while Earth 616 Wolverine is more honorable, because sure, okay, Earth 616 Cyclops and Wolverine didn't see eye to eye, but Wolverine would never have killed Cyclops just so that he could sleep with his girl. Yeah, and Wolverine wants to sleep with Jean Grey, a teenager, when Wolverine is in his 30s, at least in the Ultimate Universe. Oh, and there's also a romantic relationship between Wanda and Pietro, which is probably the scariest thing in this reality, on this Earth, and the reason I wanted it on this list. And at 9, Thanos wins. While the heroes of the MCU already received a little bit of a taste of a reality in which Thanos achieved his ultimate goal by erasing half the population of the universe in Avengers Infinity War, there exists a still darker universe where Thanos wins. Determined to finally impress death, Thanos eradicated every living being on planet Earth, including the superheroes and Frank Castle. The former Punisher made deals with both Mephisto and Galactus to find a new life of vengeance as the Cosmic Ghost Rider and stop King Thanos' dark reality from ever happening. As time went by, though, the heroes of Earth grew old and weak, but Thanos only grew stronger, his eternal quest to please death leading him to kill almost every living thing in the known galaxy, and becoming the king of what remained in his wake. Nothing. I don't know why you'd want to be king of nothing. Seems pointless in my opinion, and I'm a king, so I feel like my expertise here, but whatever, okay, as long as it's not this universe, I'm fine with it. Oh, and not only that, but knowing that he had to die in order to be with death, King Thanos gave a piece of the Time Stone to his servant, the Rider, and tasked him with going back in time to drag his younger self to the future so that he could be killed by present Thanos. And at 8, Age of Ultron. Ultron 1320 comes from Earth 14622, and What If Age of Ultron number 1. An Earth where, thanks to Wasp dying, Ultron is able to take over the world faster. Ultron was created to be the ultimate AI by Hank Pym, to help the Avengers utilize their function better as a team. But with the untimely death of Pym's wife, Pym went on to create a more brutal version of Ultron, which was to replace the Avengers. But with this, Ultron's sentience began to constantly evolve. He started the eradication of the human race by taking out such threats as the Avengers and the Defenders, while he left Pym alive to watch him suffer. Ultron and his army of Ultron Sentinels then moved to Kola, Russia, so that he could bore himself into the planet's core to create the ultimate version of himself, Ultron 1320. Ultron then had his minions batter and beat Pym unconscious until he woke up to find that he himself had been turned into Ultron 1321. This version of Ultron also invaded other worlds, claiming Earth 62412, 23223, and 81223, but was stopped on Earth 45162.
Number 7, Earth 11080, also known as the last gun on Earth reality. Here, Punisher once more faces off against the Marvel Universe. But instead of it just being a comic book trope this time around, Frank is actually not just out for vengeance, but seeks to save the world by facing off against many famous Marvel heroes and villains. This is because on this alternate Earth a virus was released that caused those infected to become violent and cannibalistic. Here Spider-Man ends up patient zero after devouring the villain Rhino live on national television. And well, I think you can imagine how dark it gets from there. It just gets darker and darker and darker. You're like, wow, it's like pitch black in this universe. I cannot see. Someone turn on a light in here. Number 6, Earth 18138. Another scary alternate reality tied to Thanos, as some are known to be. I mean, Thanos is a pretty scary dude. Actually came about because a hero was trying to redeem the villain and raise Thanos instead to be a hero. The hero who attempted this, however, wasn't really great at doing so, and instead made the future worse as a result. This hero was Frank Castle alternate Cosmic Ghost Rider. The thing with Cosmic Ghost Rider is that he only became Ghost Rider as a final gambit to try and save the universe. This was after Frank was killed when Thanos attacked the Earth. By the time Frank had made his deal to become a spirit of vengeance and returned as Ghost Rider, it was pretty much too late. He spent an eternity alone and was driven pretty crazy by the solitude. He went on to get the power Cosmic, became a Herald of Galactus, and when he still failed to stop Thanos, joined him instead. After that history was wiped from existence in which Thanos won, Cosmic Ghost Rider ended up in Valhalla for a while before realizing he wasn't really happy there, it wasn't really his thing, and being permitted by Odin to leave in order to travel back in time and try and kill Thanos to prevent a future like the one he was from ever becoming possible. Cosmic Ghost Rider couldn't bring himself to kill the then innocent baby Thanos though, and instead went on adventures with him, trying to teach him to be good. But it turns out Frank Castle wasn't necessarily an expert on the subject of heroism and goodness himself. This version of Thanos grows up instead to become a dictator, removing freedom of choice from those he rules, making them be good and banishing those who refuse to submit and obey him. That's like too much goodness. You shouldn't be trying to make people be good. Kind of gotta let them do their own thing, otherwise then you're kind of evil, kind of defeats the whole point. Thanos. Number 5. What if Ultron won? While the What If comic book series sometimes takes us to weird and hilarious alternate realities, this time around the Disney Plus and Marvel animated series took us to one of the most depressing realities yet. In episode 8 of the series, we get to see into a reality where Ultron won the day. In fact, he won all of the days to come. Black Widow and Hawkeye are the only remaining survivors, it seems, who are attempting to fight back against Ultron and stop him, once and for all, at any cost. However, in the end, Ultron finds a way to break free of his fate at being defeated, using his own power and the Infinity Stones to escape his own reality and threaten the existence of all lives across the multiverse. Is there anything scarier than this? I don't think so.
And at 4, Dark Knight Returns. Like most incarnations, this Joker is a psychopathic mass murderer who is Batman's archenemy. Following Batman's retirement though, he gets confined to Arkham Asylum and falls into a catatonic state. But when Batman returns 10 years later, he comes back as well for a final showdown with the Dark Knight. It's unknown how he knows that he's back, but he just wakes up. The final showdown between the two ends in the Tunnel of Love, in which Joker hysterically stabs Batman in the stomach several times. But mid-stab, Batman instinctively breaks the Joker's neck just enough to paralyze him, but not kill him. Joker encourages Batman to finish him off, but Batman won't do it. So the Joker then finally says, "See you in hell," before, in a last act of revenge against his enemy, twists his own neck just far enough to kill himself, and framing his enemy for his own murder. Isn't that wonderful? That's freaking nuts. Who snaps their own neck to frame a guy? Okay? This is one of the freakiest scenes in all of comics. Like, what the living hell? And at 3, a serious house. In the world of Arkham Asylum, a serious house on a serious Earth, the inmates of Arkham Asylum have taken over and seized control of the staff. They're willing to release the hostages, but only if their one demand is met. Batman must be turned over to them and become one of their own. Commissioner Gordon informs Batman that the patients of Arkham Asylum have taken over the building and will kill the staff unless Batman agrees to meet with them, and the patients are of course led by the Joker, who kills a guard to spur Batman to obey his wishes. Two-Face meanwhile meanwhile, has degenerated even further into madness, and Batman is forced into a game of hide and seek, and told he has 1 hour to make his way through the maze-like corridors of Arkham and find a way out before his old foes are sent after him. Yep, yeah. The fact that Joker is just leading a whole gang of prisoners who have taken over Arkham is absolutely insane, and then the art style of this comic makes it one of the freakiest depictions of the Joker to date. Like, you've been seeing it, it's nuts. Penultimately, in at number 2, The Batman Who Laughs. The story of Batman of Earth 22 was not much different from that of any other version of the Caped Crusader. When he was a boy, Bruce Wayne watched his parents get murdered in an alley, vowing vengeance against crime. So he trained for years and became the hero Batman, fighting supervillains in Gotham City. Everything went sideways though when Joker started a killing spree across Gotham. The clown had discovered that he was dying from the same chemicals that had turned him into what he was, and wanted to make everyone die with him. He killed all of Batman's enemies, including the Penguin, Catwoman, Killer Croc, the Ventriloquist, a lot. Joker also killed Commissioner Gordon, who accidentally sprung an acid trap on his notebook and it melted his face off. After bombing a hospital and recreating the scene of Bruce's parents killing in front of him multiple times, Batman lost control and broke the Joker's neck. Unbeknownst to Batman though, the Joker exhaled a toxin contained in his heart, which infected anyone close to him if he died. In this case, it was Batman. This caused him to snap and basically become the new Joker, taking over Earth 32 and later on, gaining cosmic power. Yeah, cosmic power. Joker. But also Batman. No thanks. And finally, in at number 1, Death of the Family. When the Joker became obsessed over destroying the Bat family, he decided to arrange for his face to be surgically removed. According to the Joker, he did this to symbolize that even without his mask, he was still the Joker, whereas Batman, Robin, and Batgirl's identities were only mask deep. To see this through, Joker arranged for the serial killer known as the Dollmaker to remove his face surgically in Arkham Asylum. The Dollmaker sent his, son to do the procedure though, only for the Joker to kill him by tearing out his throat with his teeth. Dollmaker later went on to actually remove his face, since Joker refused to do it any other way, but the two actually arranged to celebrate his rebirth before leaving the clown's face on the cell wall for Batman to find. Joker would later use straps, clips, and pins to retrofit the flesh back onto his face in a form of mask, which he wore over his now exposed tendons, hiding the way he looked, because honestly that might have been a little too much. Joker would also remain in this mask for the remainder of his plan to destroy the Bat family, a mission which ended in a dinner party in the Batcave. And I think it's fairly obvious why this is number 1. Even without cosmic power, a man getting his face removed only to turn it into a mask to wear it again? No thank you. Not to mention that this is also the face that Joker's daughter ends up wearing, I'm pretty sure. So, no.